Hello again, friends! And you are our friends, and welcome back to another edition of Jim Cornette's Drive-Thru right here, wherever you find your favorite podcasts. I'm your host, the great Brian Last. I'll be introducing the star of the show in a moment. But everyone's here for one reason, of course, the big review, Wrestlemania, 2 nights of Wrestlemania, Wrestlemania 38, parts 1 and 2. But it is my show, so I've decided instead we're going to do a watch-along. Bob Braun versus Rufus R. Jones, 2 out of 3 falls, Kansas City, 1984. What do you think, Jim?
I'll take it. I'll take it.
And here he is, the star of the show, Mr. Jim Cornette.
Oh, at this point, after seeing night 2, I believe I would watch that baked potato with arms and legs take on Rufus R. Freight Train Jones. And the Rufus R. Jones, and the R stands for guts. But that's not that's his actual line from one of his promos. But we're not going to do that today, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to talk about, if I watched it, we're going to talk about it. I'm not going to go through all that for nothing. You know, they could have Costanza'd themselves this weekend. They could have followed the George Costanza principle and left on a high note. Saturday night, if they'd have just said, you know what, folks, thank you for coming. We're done. We're done here. Trust me, you're going to like it a lot better this way than how it would unfold. Then I would have said that was a heck of a show. But they overstayed their welcome.
Well, it is a momentous occasion in wrestling history. It's the first time that, I guess in a sense, counting Triple H, 3 major stars had unannounced retirements, unbilled retirements, on the biggest stage of them all.
Wait a minute, who's the 3?
Well, Steve Austin.
Uh-huh.
Triple H left his boots in the ring.
Uh-huh.
Vince McMahon.
Uh-huh.
3.
I thought you were including Undertaker in that, since he officially
said never say never. Vince McMahon.
True.
I can't understand if Vince McMahon's legs work. I'm not exactly sure what's going on there. I think it's his last match.
It was like that clip they showed that one time of the guy that jumped off the ropes at an outlaw show and landed on both feet, and his feet bent backwards knees bent backwards like a stork.
I tweeted it out because it's the funniest image ever. The image of Vince taking the stunner. And Steve Austin, right at the moment, is spitting out beer.
Yep.
And you're looking, you're like, where are Vince's legs? Where are they? And someone tweeted out, it looks like they're on Splash Mountain. It's the funniest visual ever.
Did you see, we'll get to it, folks, later on in the program here, but did you see Austin's face when he realized, even though it's the main event at WrestleMania, the last time he's going to be potentially in the ring in a situation like that, and he's still busting out laughing because he knew it was fucked. He couldn't grab a hold. Vince was like Muhammad Ali in his prime, ducking punches, except Vince was trying to get to Austin and couldn't.
You know what? Look at it this way. If it really is the end of Vince, then it's 3 great stories coming to an end full circle. Steve Austin, first match, last match, Dallas, Texas.
Yeah.
Vince McMahon, last match, last thing he does, who knows, but let's just say.
Let's hope.
Him and Steve Austin.
Yeah.
Right there.
The concept was good, and it was a sight to behold.
Right.
All of it was a sight to behold. Some of the sights you weren't necessarily wanting to hold on to too long. But I mean, again, I was trying not to be overly critical of night 2, but I was, by that point, this is just so much. Because we did the experience, we recorded it on Saturday, right, at noon. And that was, we talked about Ring of Honor, we talked about the Hall of Fame, we talked about SmackDown. We, like everyone else, ignored Rampage. We talked about Wednesday's AEW. Then after we recorded on Saturday, it was closing in on 5 o'clock in the afternoon. I could not watch any more wrestling. So I got some delivery cheesesteaks and started watching Svengoolie. And the Werewolf of London, by the way, Henry Hull, I have his autograph. And I was asleep in 45 minutes. But then I get up on Sunday, and I realized, okay, I got to start. Now, there's still NXT. That was closing in on 3 hours of a show, and that's on with our friends, the Cock. And then I went back to the first night of WrestleMania that thankfully they still have on real television on pay-per-view. So I didn't have to deal with the Cox functionality. And then by that time, it was almost ready for night 2 of WrestleMania. I said, I can't see anymore. I'm not going to be objective. I'll get up early in the morning. So this morning, because it's barely afternoon on Monday now, I got through, and thankfully there was a few things I could skip, but I got through night 2 of WrestleMania. Now we're going to talk about all this stuff. When will this ever end? Is that the objective of WrestleMania, to make you think, my God, I don't want to see any more of this ever again?
Well, I can't wait to see what happens tonight, night 3 of WrestleMania.
No! Well, if they came out on Raw and said, you know what, we're going to do a third night. Here you go, WrestleMania Part 3. Why don't they start numbering them so we can get higher quicker? Number-wise, I mean, not the way you do.
Hey.
This should have been WrestleMania 38 and 39. Shouldn't it? Or are they going to start doing like they do on the Cock? It's WrestleMania season 38, episode 1 and 2.
Well, no, but I just think it shouldn't be that is it possible to do a 2-night WrestleMania, or just is any WrestleMania the next one in numerical order?
What?
Because that's what you're saying. You're saying that it can't be 38 part 1 and 2. It should be 38, 39.
Yes. Yeah, that's what I say. And in 40 and 41, we'll get them over with quicker that way. I don't know. I've had a hectic weekend. And before I get into knocking anybody, I want to thank all the members of the Cult of Cornette, all the listeners out there, all the folks who went to JimCornette.com. I have an action figure update, which is that the bloody variants were sold. They went on sale at noon on Saturday, and they were sold out sometime last night, Sunday night. The commentator playset, there are about, 600 and something remaining. And so, folks, if you hear this quickly and you want to jump in the next day or two on the commentator playset, we're probably going to have to call that one if things keep going at this pace. But I want to make mention, and I didn't do this last week, but we did 2 weeks ago. You know, the mail to Australia and New Zealand is still screwed up, and you get conflicting stories, and they'll take some classes of mail, but not others. We've just sent all the orders from October, November, and, well, it was October, actually, and then we closed down again. But from October, we had to go ahead. I didn't have to, but I did, to get the people, their merchandise. We sent them express and ate the cost just to get everybody, because it wasn't their fault the world's fucked up, right? And we didn't want to keep their stuff any longer. So we set the site up to where it would not take orders from Australia and New Zealand, explaining that it's because of the COVID situation. There may have been a ball dropped between me and one of the feather bottoms. I'm not saying who had the sticky fingers, but the explanation was supposed to be on there, but it just said we're not taking orders from those countries, so I will explain this here. Australia and New Zealand, we love you, and it's not your fault. So I mentioned this 2 weeks ago. I saved back several boxes of each figure. When the Australia-New Zealand mail situation gets cleared up, then we will announce it, and folks over there can email us, or email Hotchkiss and Fanny and Felcher, if they'd like to purchase one, and they'll make the arrangements so you guys weren't completely screwed on this whole thing through no fault of your own. If we saved 50 for, 5 boxes, so 60. Of the bloody variants, so we sold 1,100 and something, and we saved about the same number of the commentator play sets. Those are the last ones that I have been able, or am going to be able to get from Figures Toy Company. So this is almost called already, and I appreciate everybody And we're going to start getting busy and start shipping these out by the 1st of next week. But I wanted to give everybody the update. They went quickly, and I apologize. These things are hard to fucking get. They're hand painted by dedicated craftspeople over there in the populous country of China. But anyway, so that's where we are. So go to JimCornette.com and see what's left is all I can tell you. If you did order, thank you. And your stuff's going to start going out next week, and it's going to be several weeks. And if you live in Australia and New Zealand, you're not totally fucked, and we'll let you know when the mail clears up. But it's your show.
It is my show, but your agenda.
Well,
I hear the paper. I already hear the paper. What do you have in your hand?
No, I'm some gender or other. I could be one gender. I could be the other gender. But that doesn't have anything to do with your show.
No, and I'm not going to agenda discriminate here, but let's get going with this show now.
Very good.
Thank you very much. Jim, why don't we start with NXT, because WrestleMania kind of goes together, and NXT was NXT.
NXT was in. It doesn't really go together, does it? With the other. Well, this was the NXT Carry Out and Delivery show. That's what they called it, right? Carry Out and Delivery. Or was it Stand and Deliver? I forget which.
Take and Deliver.
Take and Deliver, or whatever the case.
Was it not Taken? It was Stand and Deliver. That's what I did last time. Stand and Deliver.
Take and Deliver.
I don't know why I keep thinking it's Take and Deliver.
Takeover is what you're thinking of.
I guess so.
Well, they took over the American Airlines Arena, and boy, could you tell the crowd had to get in that building at 10 in the morning, and they were like, we want to like this, but we're so tired. I've been on a number of, not a ton, but a number of wrestling shows over the past 40 years that took place on Saturday afternoon at like noon or 1 o'clock, and it's not easy. It's even if the people are into you and they know what's going on and everything, it's hard to get a crowd to lose their mind at a wrestling match at noon in the day. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's just something about it.
The sun being right over their head usually is what's about it.
Oh, well, they were the American Airlines Arena, at least, so they had a roof. But still, it's your body clock. It's not time to scream and yell yet. And they wanted to start me off screaming and yelling the first match, and I'm gonna talk about a rule that I adopted over these shows. And you'll hear it brought into play a number of times. I wasn't going to watch any of these multi-man or multi-woman or multi-talent fiasco matches. Because they're never any good. I'm not going to fucking like them. There's plenty of other stuff to critique where they actually were trying to be serious and professional without these clusterfucks getting in the way. And especially also then when you have a 5-man ladder match that starts the show. Everyone for himself, 5 men, 18 ladders, somebody's going to get fucking paralyzed. I would say somebody's going to break their neck, but they've already done that and they didn't even need any ladders. So the opening match was for the North American title, Carmelo with his friend Trick against Pablo Escobar, against Grayson Waller, against Solo Sikoa, against Cameron Grimes. By the way, Solo Sikoa is the brother of the Usos. He's Rikishi's son. A bunch of people pointed that out when I said he's obviously got experience. He may not even have experience. He's just a Samoan. They can all fucking work.
I like when they won't even acknowledge his family name and his family's on the roster.
Well, yeah, that...
Steiner, at least his dad and uncle are retired. They haven't been there. His brothers are the World Tag Team Champions. Let's not call him Uso. Let's not confuse people.
Yeah, well, it is confusing. But I've tried and we've tried, and we do like Cameron Grimes. He's a great worker. He's a great talker. He's got personality. And you can tell he loves the wrestling business, and they've presented him as such a silly fuck. And he's been put in so many preposterous, fake-looking deals, and they obviously encourage him to, or flat out tell him to, over-exaggerate every goofy part of his gimmick. So it's put me off of him.
This is the first time I saw him since you told me that he trimmed his hair.
Well, no, it's growing back now. He was bald as an egg, chest, back, face. They peeled him. And now he's got a little patch of chest hair and a little bit more beard. So that's a plus, but anyway, no way I'm watching a 5-man ladder match. And Cameron Grimes won. It looked good at that, but it was 30 minutes into this fucking show before this thing was over with. And was anyone carried out in an ambulance? I didn't hear about it.
It's crazy that we're at the point where a multi-person ladder match doesn't really register anymore. It's just like, hey, I've seen this. Nothing special to me. I like that they're doing something with Grimes. I hate that they tried to water down his incredibly unique look. We'll see what happens with that going forward, but it makes me think back to when we used to watch some of those takeovers. It was like every match on the show was like, ooh, this is an interesting match. This is a good match. This is something I'm looking forward to. There was a lot of stuff on this show. It was like, okay, I'm just waiting to get to one or two things.
Well, and they've turned it into the main roster show, but with people that most people haven't ever heard of. Green talent doing multiple man ladder matches and all the phoniness that Vince is 76. How old is Bruce Pritchard? He's a year or two younger than me. So people with combined age of over 130 are determining that all this silliness on NXT will get the young people to watch. Because they're texting on the wrestling program. We must watch this now. Next match, Tony D'Angelo and Tommaso Ciampa. Now, since this is an actual match with two guys against each other, I will watch this. And also, Ciampa's brilliant in most cases. Tony D'Angelo is the worst, stereotype of a 1990s Vince gimmick. Who is AJ Galante? Is he a stooge on NXT now, or is he another one of these celebrities that we don't know who the fuck they are?
I feel weird saying I don't know who he is, but I have no idea who he is. But they made it sound like he was the star of some show on Netflix, I think. So he's some sort of celebrity of some renown somewhere. I just don't know who he is.
He was in Tony's corner, and he was happy about the whole thing.
This is the first time I've seen Tony D'Angelo all these weeks of you talking about this guy. He's ridiculous.
There's a guy under there that seems like he can work a little bit. And he's got some size to him, but they've made it so goofy that, But the main reason to watch this is because Ciampa has been teasing either he's leaving NXT. He's been on Raw a couple times at the main roster. Or I don't know if he's been on, you know what I'm saying? He's been on been at the Raw programs the past few weeks. He was in that fucking stinky Battle Royal on SmackDown. He's going to the main roster apparently, but they're acting like he may be retiring, and he's been acting like he's going to a funeral. Leaving NXT, if he's going to the main roster, he ain't happy about it. Anyway, that's been the tease of the whole thing because of his cryptic interviews and saying goodbye and all that stuff. And this pretty well, as it unfolded, I would imagine this was his farewell to NXT. Is it going to come out next week that he said, if I can't stay in NXT, if I've got to go to one of those other rotten shows, I'm just going to quit? Or is he going to take his punishment of going to the main roster and like it? He was doing all the tribute stuff when he got in on his entrance. He did the Triple H spit. He did the Shawn Michaels double bicep. And then, the match, Ciampa's fantastic. D'Angelo tried to keep up as best he could, but Ciampa, he's ripped to shreds physically. He's got cardio. He looks great. Did you notice, are they doing the bullshit floor camera zooms they do on Raw on NXT 2 now? Because I was seeing a lot of meh.
I didn't notice, but I'm kind of used to it, but it wouldn't surprise me considering it's now in the hands of Vince and, his people.
Well, anyway, there was a little heat. Ciampa made a comeback, missed a knee. Tony D'Angelo hit a suplex.
Champa went for they went back and forth. And finally, Champa kicked it up a little bit and ripped his shirt off and just chopped him to death. Because D'Angelo, since he actually has a normal body, I mean, they've told him to wear a shirt, I guess, to cover it up. But, you know, again, Champa did a lot of good stuff there when they were on the buckles quite a while. But D'Angelo pushes him off. He comes off. Champa hits a nice, sweet knee lift. They trade the 1-2s. It's cooking. And then D'Angelo goes over and pulls a crowbar out from in between the stairs and the ring, where he's obviously left it there. Somebody's left it there. But the point is, he pulls the crowbar. Nobody's bumped the ref. Nobody's distracting the ref. He brings the crowbar in and takes a swing at Champa, and Champa ducks it. And the referee just takes the crowbar away from D'Angelo and turns around and starts handing it out to some ring stooge. Is now a attempted homicide with a crowbar is not a disqualification in front of the referee now.
Well, we've seen crowbars to cars like Sammy Guevara and Ty Conte to Dan Lambert's car outside. That's not an offense to get you arrested, and either, I guess, is using a crowbar in any way. I think Devin Storm needs to make a comeback, is what I'm saying.
He's never been away. But finally, the referee's putting the crowbar out. Can't do that, boys. And D'Angelo gives Champa a nut shot and hits his finish, but Champa kicks out. Okay. So then D'Angelo goes and gets the crowbar again. And this time the referee, I guess, just watches him, goes out, and he's going to get the crowbar and bring it back in. But as he's coming in, Champa hits the widow's bell and the fairy tale ending, and D'Angelo kicks out of it. And then Champa gets crossface. D'Angelo gets a rope break. Champa rolls out after him, and D'Angelo DDTs him on the bare floor where Champa had pulled the mats up earlier and they didn't use it, and then rolls Champa back in the ring and gives him, I don't know, the way he built up for it, you would think it was Bruiser Brody's big boot, but Ciampa's there on his knees, and D'Angelo just hit him with a shitty-looking flat-footed kick in the back of the head. Cover 1, 2, 3. The finish was not only flat, but it was kind of bizarre. Why did they need to do? Did they think they're helping Tommaso? He kicks out after the nut shot, so they have to go get the crowbar again. That was all over the place at the end. If you're gonna hit the guy in the nuts when the referee's distracted, and the guy's going to kick out after a fucking nut shot when you just try to crowbar, I don't fucking know. And then they build up to a flat-footed kick in the back of the head. What'd you think?
I thought it was all right. I thought the crowd heard it. But I thought the crowd heard everything throughout this show. Although there were some things that hurt itself throughout the show. I thought it was all right. I wasn't digging Tony D'Angelo. It's the first time I've seen him work. Maybe it's because I thought the gimmick was so ridiculous just from the little vignette of him driving to the arena, talking as over the top. I know, I have so many friends.
You know a few Italians from Jersey, don't you?
I know a few Italians from Brooklyn, wwhere he's purportedly from, his character. I've never seen it over the top. It's like Ford Fairlane. It's ridiculous. Hey, it's ridiculous.
A bit of bee, a bit of ba, a bit of boo.
So, I mean, it's kind of weird when you have someone who's, he may not be Doink the Clown, but it's still a clown character, wrestling someone who's just a serious guy. You said he's shredded. When he was out there, and I'm sure you'll talk about the post-match, when he was out there with Triple H and they hugged heads, I don't know what you call it, bonked heads and held it.
Yeah.
I said, he looks like a miniature Triple H. Same look.
Yeah.
Same body type. I mean, he's not as big a guy as Paul Levesque is in real life, so he can't get to that size, but look at what he's done to his body from where he started to where he is now. He's like a miniature Triple H.
Well, and that's, basically the thing is after the heel wins and he gets hugged by his apparent celebrity friend, and then they leave Champa in the ring so the crowd can chant, "Thank you, Champa," blah, blah, blah. And he's going to the back, and you can tell that this was not, he didn't know this was coming. Triple H's music hits, or some music that wasn't Triple H's "Time to Play the Game."
It was Triple H's.
Was it?
The word game was in there somewhere. It was Triple H's.
Well, but it wasn't the time to play the game thing. It's all about the game and who wins it or whatever the fuck.
Well, he's got a bunch of different things.
He's got a bunch of songs.
It was Lemmy. It was definitely Lemmy.
It was Lemmy? Lemmy Winks?
That's the singer. No, not Lemmy Winks. Lemmy from Motorhead.
Here comes Triple H and stops Ciampa, go back out, and he hugs him, and they talk and embrace, and Triple H holds his hand up and everything, and you could tell Tommaso was emotional. He's probably, both proud of what he did there and scared shitless of what he's going to have to do in the future. But that was a nice moment that he came out and raised Tommaso's hand and etc.
He really is, I guess, the last of the Triple H guys there, right?
Yeah, I would think. I mean, there might be a few referees or backstage personnel running around, but I think they've gutted the talent roster.
But yeah, in terms of, actually, I should clarify, I'm sure Triple H has a claim for Braun Breaker or various other people, but in terms of indie talent that Triple H went around and signed up, he's like the last of it.
Yeah. And now there's somebody else that's collecting all the indie talent, but they don't bring them in and teach them anything. They just bring them in and let them stay stupid. Speaking of staying stupid, the next match, and there's a pattern here. Every time a championship is on the line, they've muddied it up with 18 people involved in it. The ladder match was 5 people for the North American title. Here, the tag team title with 3 teams. Imperium, the Creed Brothers, and MSK. I will make a couple of observations. I saw MSK's entrance, and their gyrations and gesticulations and hopping up and down make me hate them even more than their prison tattoos, their bad hair, and their goofy teamwork. And the Imperium, Marcel and Fabian, they look fantastic physically. They look like they completely don't belong with the rest of these yahoos. They look like they could be working for fucking Otto Vons in the 70s, right? Athletes, wrestlers. But this is a triple threat match, so it's going to suck, plus MXSK. So what happened?
Well, you didn't say anything about the Creed Brothers.
Oh, well, the Creed Brothers, if they didn't have the job guy manager that is never responsible for any heinous acts and the outfits that don't make them look like the Steiners did when they started wrestling as ex-amateurs, but just kind of like goofy kids that wandered in from the high school gym. And the fact that, again, this is a 3-way, so they're green and you can't tell what the fuck they know because it's a 3-way. Yeah, I didn't mention them. Otherwise than that...
Was that the review of the match?
That was the review of the match. It's a 3-way. I've adopted a rule for this weekend. They're not going to be any good. And it's the same thing over and over that everybody in every company does. So what am I going to sit there and fucking make myself miserable for?
Do you think the amount of 3-ways that we see, especially on a big show, is it because they want to get people on the show? Is it because it's just bad booking? Is it because it's lazy booking? I mean, why do you think we see so many multi-person matches, and how many of them are just because they're trying to cram people on a show?
I think there is an element of that, especially, and I mean, obviously with the Battle Royals, that's exactly what that is. Let's let everybody be on the show. You know what? If everybody gets on every big show, then it's not really a milestone to get on the big show, is it? Because everybody does. But also, since almost nobody on the writing team, I would have to think, in the WWE today was actually a fan of wrestling before 15 years ago, because they're probably in their fucking 30s, and they've got Michael Hayes and a few of the other ex-wrestler producers so pussy-whipped to sports entertainment that they think that they're wrong and that this modern way of booking is right. And so they think that, oh, well, this will be exciting. They think like Marks now. Remember, I've said many times, Marks will come up with a dream match in their head and write it down on paper, a la Tony Khan, and they won't bother to think of how it will actually transpire and whether everybody will look good or not, because the idea of these 4 people fighting all for themselves is just so tantalizing to their mind. And they don't bother to think of what it's actually going to look like or what you're going to do, or is it going to be good or bad for anybody or whatever the case. And it's just a mess. But that's, I mean, you know, I expect that from Tony because that's his experience, playbooking in his notebooks. But this is $1 billion company. To give the other girls a fucking check and have if you're going to have a women's title match, which was up next, have a challenger hot and ready to go for that women's title and fucking give the other 2 girls a check to say thank you. We'll try next year. Or the same thing with one of the tag teams. Or 3 of the 5 people in the ladder match. It's just the same. And if you can go to an outlaw show at a high school gym anywhere in the country and see a 4 or 5 person quintuple threat match. It's ridiculous. And so it's part of both. It's, we got to get these people on the show. They've been so loyal. Well, then book them in something people would want to pay to see instead of just throwing everybody out there. The women's title match, Mandy Rose versus Cora Jade versus Io Shirai versus Kaylee Ray. If I'm not going to watch men in a triple threat tag match or a 5-way ladder match, I ain't going to watch 4 women go for the women's title of the 3rd level brand. But at least this was free on Peacock. Did I miss anything with the women's match?
Nothing that you would enjoy. I thought Cora Jade showed some promise. I think I was surprised by how big the crowd popped for Mandy Rose winning. I don't know if it was because they were surprised that she kept the title or just she's actually getting over with the NXT fans, whatever that may be, or the traveling WrestleMania fans. But
she's a heel, right?
She's a heel. I think she's a heel.
You said they popped. Did they pop or did they cheer? Did they go, oh, or did they just, yay?
They popped like they were happy, like, yay.
So the heel wins and they're all happy. Well, that's been presented perfectly then.
Yeah, maybe she's a friendly heel.
All right, let's get back into the wrestling business because the next match, now we're getting to the meat of the matter. Walter and LA Knight. And I saw somebody on Twitter say, I liked Walter better before he lost the weight. He looked like more of a monster. I'm telling you, I don't think that his weight loss has hurt his aura. It's the way he carries himself. And now he's in great shape. He looks like Gene Kiniski. The fucking no muscular definition, but he's in shape and his cardio and he doesn't stop coming at you. He's not even wearing knee pads. He got a fucking haircut like a white guy from the 50s. And you can't get him to stop coming at you or get him off of you. It's like Gene Kiniski if he was born in Germany. And LA Knight is a classic professional wrestler. He can talk, he can bump, he can work, he can sell. He's got personality. So, again, Walter and LA Knight here, let's add both of those guys to the list of people who look more like a world champion than old Adam Page does. These are the guys in the WWE developmental, for fuck's sake. And it was an aggressive match from the start. Walter is Walter. He's aggressive. He manhandles people. And LA Knight stays in it because he's the worker. And in this position, he's a baby face. He can sell, but he doesn't die. He keeps coming. And the match made sense. From the time that Walter cut him off and hit the powerbomb on the apron on LA's back, he worked on his back, giving him hard buckles. At one point, LA reversed the second buckle and gave Walter a backdrop. That may have been the only backdrop I saw in 20 hours of watching wrestling this week. It was so refreshing. And I think, was there one chop in this match? One of the vaulters, real drawback, and boom, and he leveled him with it.
I don't think so.
Did you see a bunch more chops? There was that one chop that he leveled him with it, but he didn't like in the match with Ilya. They just chopped the piss out of each other. This was a completely different match. Walter can do, he's still always Walter, but he can do everything. He doesn't have to just chop a guy. And LA, probably being an old school type of guy, maybe had suggested a moratorium on the chops for this one. LA made a comeback. Boom, stomped the mud hole in him, kept coming, kept on him. Did you see the jump up where he superplexed Walter off the top? That was pretty. And then he hit a big move, got a 2 count, went for the moonsault, and Walter crotched him on the turnbuckle, and as he bumped in, Walter goes right to the top, splash to the back, which is what he's been working on through the whole match, spins him up, gives him a power bomb on the back. 1, 2, 3. That was a great pro wrestling match.
You want me to disagree with you?
No.
It was a very good match. I wouldn't say great.
Hop in with your comments.
I wouldn't say great. I would say very good. LA Knight's really impressive. It's weird that he's on the NXT roster. First time I've seen Walter since the weight loss, the toning up. It's an adjustment. It's different because I haven't seen him in a while, but he's still got that face. And that face is, that's what'll make him the money more than even the size.
Yeah. He looks like a U-boat captain.
He does. Gunther Stark, I believe, would be the U-boat captain's name what we remember.
Yeah. Well, looking like one without naming him after one is the good thing.
The only other thing I'll say is you said it looked nice. I thought that superplex spot was the highlight of the match. It looked incredible. Just because of the size of Walter, to see him go up and over.
Yeah.
It looked incredible.
And LA's jump. Yeah, he's a grown man too. But anyway, there's some talent sprinkled in here that you could get something out of. It's just that you have to skip through the 17-man fiasco match right afterwards to get to the next one. Which, by the way, are we ready for the main event?
I don't know. I saw it, so I don't know.
You didn't like it.
I thought it was okay. For me, it was a letdown. I don't know what I was expecting. I don't know what I was expecting from the crowd, but it wasn't what I was expecting. And also, I don't know. I hate to say they should have done the finish I think they should have done, but I thought it was time. I wouldn't have beaten Steiner. That's just me.
Well, I kind of see what they're doing because I'm thinking that they may be afraid they're about to Rocky Maivia Braun Breaker. Too much, even though he's so much more likable and a better haircut than poor Rocky when he came out and had to smile with the spangles and the
just let him talk.
Streamers on.
Just let him talk. He won't be Rocky Maivia. Just let him talk on the mic and people will hear what kind of person he is. Like, oh boy, I want to see this guy fight.
But I was surprised too that they didn't, make the move to put it back on him on the big show. And that's why that Ziggler referenced in his promo, well, everybody thinks this is going to be the big happy ending for, Braun Breaker and he's going to get the big win. Well, I got other plans. And they, this was really, this was a one-match show. Everybody wanted to see this match. The other matches that we've just described, they're in town for WrestleMania, so they're sitting there, but I don't know that this card would have been stellar without this match. They did a nice package to build it. They had the little bit of the walk backstage. They had Steiner comes up on a NXT colored psychedelic chainsaw and revs it up and comes out. Well, you can buy those regularly at Home Depot and Lowe's. They're on sale now. The NXT brand model. But he revs it up and comes out on the stage and cuts the X in half in NXT that's there. But did you see the one thing that I know they're a big publicly traded company and I know there's a lot of liability issues and the major arenas and live television and blah, blah, blah. But did you see what killed the whole thing for me? I love Braun Steiner, but it killed the whole thing for me with the chainsaw. What was it? Did you see what killed it for me?
I don't know what killed it for you. Was it right after he cut through the middle of the X and then he had to put it down?
No, it's when he had to take his safety goggles off.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
Here's it. Can you imagine if Terry Funk had been in that position? Okay, Terry, chainsaw Charlie. Well, you're going to rev that chainsaw up and cut that X in half. But right before you do, we want you to duck down behind the X and put on the safety goggles and then chainsaw through the X that's obviously balsa wood or some kind of lightweight material anyway, and then take the safety goggles off and act like you. Can you see Terry Funk wearing safety goggles? Can you see Rick Steiner wearing safety goggles? That's the only thing. No, I know they.
I think Terry Funk would hurt himself. I can see Terry Funk getting really into it and just leaning back and going back.
Yeah, he'd probably fucking chainsaw off his arm at the elbow or whatever. But the point is, if it had been years ago before these things became such issues, they would have, whoever the babyface was, Rick Steiner, Terry Funk, whoever was, oh, sure, I'll put the goggles on. And then they'd have chainsawed through the thing and half the fucking stage with no goggles on. But they give this guy a chainsaw so he could look like a fucking badass second coming of Leatherface from Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And he's wearing safety goggles. But nevertheless, he looks great. And they got in the ring and the bell rang. And again, I know you said the crowd was not into this because it was that time of day. They weren't into that. They were into it, but not like the other shows that happen at night. And you could tell that I think Steiner felt a little more pressure on this one than he has on the TV matches because it's a big weekend and a big match and et cetera, et cetera. But you could detect a couple of times the poor Braun Steiner needed a cue card. But that's why Dolph Ziggler was there. That's the whole reason they've chosen Ziggler and Rude, because they're such experienced professionals, such good workers, such pros. They can go in there and they can do on-the-job training with the guys in NXT. That's why this is happening. But there was a couple of bobbles. At one point, Dolph shot him off, reverse. Ziggler's going to go to leapfrog up, and Steiner's going to catch him and power slam him, but Steiner forgot to catch him. He just kind of ran into him. But they went back and got it. And, you know, the whole thing was where they kicked Rude out of ringside, by the way, for trying to interfere. But basically, it was a chance to give Braun Steiner a main event match with a guy that can keep him on track, which he had to a couple times. And still, for a guy with that level of experience, I thought he did fine. You know, at one point, during Ziggler getting the heat, Steiner seemed to have trouble understanding how to fire up and fight back from underneath and get stopped by the heel rather than just kind of wander around and let the heel come to him. But suddenly, Steiner slipped out of a neckbreaker attempt and went from zero to hero almost instantly. Boom! It was time to go. Big comeback, a spinning sidewalk slam. I wrote, oof. I'm thinking in days gone by, all the guys in the locker room, when Ziggler came back in, they said, what the fuck? Do you owe him trance? What is the issue here? The sidewalk slam almost flattened him. Then he did a Frankensteiner off the top rope, 2 count. Then a spear, another oof, 2 count. I feel sorry for Dolph Ziggler. And it's not like he's doing it maliciously, but he's same as his father and his uncle. He's so big and strong and fucking... Good Lord. So then Ziggler shit-canned Steiner to the floor. And, you know, at that point, they're on borrowed time there. It seemed like they were kind of bobbling, but Steiner foiled a kick that Ziggler went for, hit another spear, another oof. And then he did the press into the power slam finish, and that's where Rude reappeared at ringside and pulled Ziggler out from under the cover. And so Steiner was able, as Rude was at ringside getting Ziggler all back together, Steiner hit a cannonball dive over the top rope on both of them, and that looked like an oof, too. There was none of this pretty, I'm going to fly like an eagle over the top, and the guys at the bottom waiting like, oh, we'll catch you. It was like, bam, it looked like a bowling ball being thrown into 2 fucking pins. So then he throws Ziggler into the ring, runs Rude into the steps, and comes back in the ring, and right as he starts to stand up, Ziggler hits a famouser and a zigzag, and cover 1, 2, he kicked out, and now they had him because they thought that was it. So, boom, they went. And then Ziggler comes off with the big elbow off the top for a 2 count and starts tuning up the super kick, but Steiner is back up to his feet, clothesline, spear, goes for the press slam. Ziggler reaches down and rakes his eyes, pushes him into the exposed turnbuckle that we actually forgot had been exposed a while back, and hit him with a super kick, 1, 2, 3. It had its moments. They got the crowd on that one false finish, and at least they had him at the end there. Steiner's human. He makes a few mistakes, but, I mean, this was... If it was the best wrestling match on the show was obviously Walter and LA Knight, but this was, I thought, adequate for what the people came to see.
I guess I thought it was flat. I just thought it was flat. I think the finish was flat. I think the crowd was flat. But I think you're there for WrestleMania. They inducted his dad and his uncle into the Hall of Fame. You could have had a really special moment. Instead, the show ended flat. I mean, there were other things they could have done.
Well, and you know, that is, I wonder why that, you know, Rick and Scott were there and they couldn't even do some kind of, well, I guess, I don't know. Scott had a heart issue. I was going to say, couldn't they have been the ones to come out and fucking pick Rude up and carry him off? That would have got the people into it. But Scott's had a heart issue and Rick's running for mayor or something. So who knows? I don't know.
Should run for dog catcher.
Hey!
I mean, he would be good at it. Dog-faced gremlin.
Well, yeah, he can speak to the animals. He knows their language.
Well, Jim, of course, Rick Steiner was known as the dog-faced gremlin. And perhaps Rick Steiner, looking back, looking in the mirror, sees that he's no longer the dog-faced gremlin he once was. Perhaps he's shaved off the hair off his face. Perhaps the hair on his head is gone. Perhaps he could have done something to keep the dog-faced gremlin look and keep his hair.
Well, you know, I think you're right, Brian. It took you a while to get there, but you've arrived at the destination. And if you folks out there in podcast land are having problems with your hair, you need to keep it with Keeps. Now, of course, it won't work on your face. Rick has lost some hair on his chinny chin, and the Keeps doesn't work on your chest or your back or your chin or your knuckles or anything like that. But if you want hair on the top of your head, folks, 2 out of 3 men will experience some form of hair loss by the time that they're 35. And even more these days when they just shave it for no reason. More than 50 million men in the United States suffer from male pattern baldness, but Keeps, the folks at Keeps.com, have not only for sale the only 2 FDA-approved medications, generic versions, that can prevent hair loss, so they're cheaper, more inexpensive, we'll say, but also they have a staff standing by, medical advisors, prescribers, and care specialists, 24/7 care and support, so that you can conveniently, virtually consult these doctors over the internet. You don't have to go anywhere in person, and the medications can be delivered straight to your door every 3 months. Yes, folks, right now you may look like a peeled egg, but in 6 months you're going to look like the werewolf of London. Prevention is the key, because treatments can take 4 to 6 months to see results, so act fast, and we're going to save you some money. If you go to Keeps, KEEPS.com/JCE, you're going to get your first month of treatment for free. Keeps.com/JCE to get your first months of treatment for free. I'm telling you, folks, by September, October, your wife wakes up next to you. She's going to call animal control. She's going to think something has gone wrong. What's in the bed next to me? It's covered in hair. Keeps.com/JCE. Brian, I know that's a question you've asked yourself many times. What's in the bed next to me? It's covered with hair.
I've never asked that question. I always know who's in bed next to me, and I always have. You have to be in control of your senses, ladies and gentlemen.
You didn't mention anything about the hair.
Well, there's always hair. Girls have hair.
Covered with it?
Well, not all girls have hair, actually. Jada Pinkett doesn't have hair.
Wait a minute. I'll slap you.
Oh, no, not me, no.
You alopecia asshole, you.
All right, well.
Keeps. Keeps.com.
Keeps.
Jim,
on that note, let's keep slapping along here on the show. Night 1 of WrestleMania, Dallas, Texas, WrestleMania 38, a 2-night affair. Night 1 has been somewhat universally praised. What did you think?
I will join that. I will join that category. I was dreading, obviously, because these things are sometimes 4 and 5 hours long. And I was dreading it going in. And after Saturday night was over, that's why I say, you know what? This ain't so bad. This was good. Sunday night, I'm not necessarily looking forward to it like zombie Ed McMahon coming and bringing me my check for winning the lottery, or the sweepstakes. But I was, I had a heightened sense of optimism after Saturday. Let's say that. Let's talk about Saturday for a while.
Let's talk about Saturday. When did you start watching?
What, Saturday? I started Sunday morning or Sunday?
No, did you watch like any of the pre-show stuff with all the talking heads out in front of the stadium?
No, I recorded the pre-show and there was no matches on it. It's like the goddamn red carpet at the Oscars or whatever.
Well, on that note, let me ask you one question about that. What do you think about the idea of not doing a dark match on a show this big?
Well, I honestly hate dark matches to begin with on big shows because I hate dark matches mostly now on any shows because people have it used to be a dark match. There was 1 or 2 matches at a TV taping that wouldn't be taped for television, hence the term dark match. And that was either get the people in the seats at the start of the show to check the equipment, run through the audio, announcers do a little call of something, or if you wanted to take a look at somebody that you were considering doing something with in front of a crowd, they're right there in front of you, do it then. Then all the independents thought that dark matches go on house shows. And then they started, and Ring of Honor used to do this. It'd drive me out of my mind. Pre-show matches with well-meaning individuals still in wrestling school that didn't need to be in front of a big crowd. They need to be in front of a lot of small crowds, not a few big crowds. And I never understood that. You're getting people to come to a place like the Hammerstein Ballroom in New York City or any, I'm just talking about Ring of Honor now, anywhere, anybody's running a big show. And as soon as the doors open and the people come in, they start putting out fucking matches with guys that don't really know how to work and kill the crowd. It's like, what the fuck? We've got people to come to our big show, so we're going to show them the worst wrestling they've ever seen while they're taking their seats and getting their drinks, and then we'll start the show. So dark matches, have been overdone to begin with also. So I don't think they should put a match on WrestleMania before the show starts, except if they're doing a 2-hour pregame show, then show us some fucking matches. For 2 hours, you're just going to talk about what we're going to spend 4 hours watching? Did you ever think of it that way? I'm going to sit here and watch people talk for 2 hours about something immediately following that I'm going to watch myself for 4 more hours.
I think there's a lot of people who get really amped up for a big event. I mean, there's a reason why the Super Bowl begins in the morning. You can watch programming all day about the Super Bowl.
I never have.
Well, you also don't care about the Super Bowl. If you were really a WrestleMania nut job, and you were totally into the world of WWE, you probably want to see the guy from the radio show and JBL and Lawler somehow fit in there, and Booker T just give their kayfabe thoughts on various things. I don't know.
I'd like to have heard Lawler doing some commentary, but I don't want to hear him talking about a show that he's not going to be on.
Oh, he was awful on that pre-show. He's become the old man who just wants to do jokes. So no matter what you talk about, he's like, hey, I got one for you. What happens? It's like, wait a minute. Whoa, we're not doing jokes now. But he kept doing it.
All right. Well, Saturday night, night one, they don't do the national anthem. They do America the Beautiful, because Vince doesn't like the national anthem. He doesn't think it's melodic or something. He always does America the Beautiful. And some country guy named Bradley Gilbert did the America the Beautiful. Then they blew the pyro off, and then here come the Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders. Not with anybody. They just came out and danced. They're in Dallas. Okay, I guess for people who like that kind of thing, it's the kind of thing those people like. Then our opening match, and believe me, I wouldn't have watched this except I heard that shit took place. The Usos against Booger and Shaky. And it's not that I don't like the Usos. I've mentioned they look great, and they're not bad in the ring, but I can't deal with them as tag team champions when they've also been portrayed as Roman Reigns' flunkies that get beat up on a regular basis by people that are going to be opposing Roman Reigns. They can do one or the other, but I don't think that your top heel tag team should be flunkies in a group with other people. Tully and Arn were not flunkies to Flair. It was an association. See what I'm saying? So anyway, besides that, I don't get anything about Shaky Nakamura. I don't get the whole thing. He looks to me like an elderly Japanese Jeff Hardy that is in pain when he moves around. He does very little except twitch and go into spasms. He was a big deal at one time several years ago, right?
Yeah, he was great. In New Japan, he was fantastic.
What happened?
He came up from NXT to the main roster.
Well, they got heat on him in this match, and then they did simultaneous tags, and then Booger did his comeback. And I've never met this guy, and I'm sorry he got hurt. I think I've never seen a stupider gimmick. The way he acts, the way he talks, the whole presentation of him. I would never watch Booger or Shaky on purpose, of my own free will, just because of the way they act. And by the way, on the entrance, he's not playing the guitar. That's a track. He's not playing that. At one point, there's this fucking blistering guitar riff going on, and he puts his hand down and steps through the ropes. He's not even touching the guitar. Right? So I don't wish him ill as a person, but this is just the stupidest gimmick and stupidest portrayal of somebody I've ever seen. But he's making a comeback, and he picks one of them up for the fireman's carry, and the other Uso brother comes in and immediately runs and jumps up on his brother's back, because the strong man is going to have, for the pop from the people, is going to have both of them up in a fireman's carry and give them some kind of move. Problem is, not only did it look so ridiculous when the Uso came in the ring and just ran and jumped. Obviously, it wasn't like he was running to attack Booger, and Booger bent over and scooped him up too. He just ran and jumped up on his brother's back. And then when he landed, this was not necessarily anybody's fault. That's the spot they agreed on. But when he jumps up and comes down, all that extra weight, Boogs bends over and tries to get up under him and do whatever he's going to do. And it was so much weight and awkward. And the top Uso started sliding down a little bit off kilter toward the right. And anyway, all the weight went on Boogs' right leg and his quad tore right off the fucking kneecap. And if you watch this back, because some people were thinking it was his knee, which you would think, but if you watch it back, you can actually see right above his knee pad, there is a giant bulge that looks like a well-developed thigh muscle, but right at the kneecap. That's what that looks when that muscle tears, it rolls up like that. So you're actually looking at the guy's muscle torn off the bone, the patella, which is the kneecap. And that ain't good. So he fucking goes down yelling and selling, and the referee's like, what the fuck? And he rolls over and tags Nakamura and rolls out on the floor, and we don't see him again except when they shoot it later on when the doctor's assisting him and carrying him out. But they had to, they did a nice false finish with the Usos, get the people back into it, and then they called something on the fly and beat Nakamura. But like I said, the injury was nobody's fault. And I see the idea that they were going for. This guy's really strong and he's powerful and he can pick both these guys up. But again, I've seen people try to do this more than I've seen them actually successfully do it. It's an awkward thing to get the guy up there in that position. I've seen guys better catch two guys in a cross body easier or some other thing, but they worked it out, I'm sure, ahead of time. But when they worked it out ahead of time, they hadn't been wrestling. And the guy wasn't tired at all, and nobody was sweaty. And, you know, just 5 or 10 minutes of activity can fatigue the muscles. Everybody's getting sweaty, and they're slipping. Weight goes sideways, and shit happens. And and it was so obvious that the guy jumped up into the thing that the announcers called it an offensive move when the guy went down screaming, oh, that was an offensive move by the Usos. It actually looked that way, but if they'd successfully done it, it wouldn't have been. So I would not have put that spot in at that point. I would think there's other ways. He could have double suplexed him. He could have done the deadlift with both of them. And I bet you he would have nailed that, both of them at the same time. Where it went south was having one up and then the other one going up, and that tilted the pile. So how long's he going to be out? Because they already sent him to Birmingham for surgery, right?
Yeah, that can't be something you come back too quickly from, I don't think.
No, I think it's 6 months or more.
At least.
But anyway, so they did a package after the match there, the Usos match. And I thought at the time, I wrote, it was Knoxville and Sami Zayn for the following night. But they showed the package because night one, they showed packages of promote matches from night two. And then night two, they showed recap packages from night one. And I wrote, when I saw this is the most ridiculous, phony bullshit ever. And I fast forwarded through most of it when it actually happened on these various programs because it was insulting and I didn't want to see it. And I think it actually was worse when I saw it all put together. And have I mentioned that Johnny Knoxville is an absolute complete imbecile in every facet of the word? So we got that to look forward to. And then they recapped the Happy Corbin story from homeless to Vegas to money to mosh pit. And as you'll recall, we've not watched any of that on purpose either because it's so ludicrous. So things were headed downhill. But then they have Drew McIntyre and Happy and Mosh Pit. Mosh Pit's in the corner. What do you think Drew McIntyre has done to piss these people off? They were going to make him the top star in the company. He beat Brock Lesnar. He was the world champion. And suddenly they decided, well, we're just going to beat him and take it back. And now we're going to beat him some more. And we're going to put him in angles with goofballs and we'll give him a sword. That'll keep people's mind off of it. What the fuck could he have done to be involved in all of this?
I can't explain any of this. I can't explain the booking of Drew McIntyre since fans have come back at all.
Well, anyway, Happy is worse than the Red Rooster as far as gimmicks go. This is automatically, you don't want to see any of this. And I didn't want to see any of it. Drew McIntyre, you know, nothing wrong with him, but seriously. So we go to the end. The only thing I cared about was the sword spot. Did you see the slow motion replay?
I did.
Folks, after Drew and Happy were finished doing whatever they were doing, Drew's in the ring with his sword, and old Mosh Pit decides he's going to get up on the apron of the ring. And this is what I didn't understand. Mosh Pit is there on the apron of the ring, and Drew's all the way over across the other side of the ring looking at him. Drew walks over toward him. Mosh Pit just stands there like he's locked in some kind of therapeutic boot apparatus where he can't jump off the apron. His feet are locked to the mat, and he lets Drew walk right up on him with a 5-foot fucking sword in his hand. And then they stare at each other. And then Drew goes to draw the sword back, and that's when Mosh Pit jumps down to the floor. And Drew swings the sword at where Mosh Pit was a second or two ago, and they've gimmicked the ring ropes to where when he hits the ropes with the sword, not only do they play a sound effect, but all 3 ropes are instantly turned loose. I mean, they had a release or however they did this. The ropes are cut like he cut them with the sword. Boom, boom, boom. But the problem is they showed it back in slow motion, and the sword is rubber. The sword bent halfway over the fucking ropes before the ropes severed. Did you catch that flippy floppy sword?
I think you're underscoring how tough those ropes are.
It reminded me of the one time I made the mistake, because we didn't have a real one, of sending Bullet Bob Armstrong out to the ring to make a save with a wiffle ball bat. I said, no, I said, because it was black. I said, nobody will know, because it was in the locker room at the school. Nobody had a bat. I didn't have a bat. God damn it, there's a bat. Tape it. It looks like a black bat. And everything was fine. Bob can work with a bat. Everything was fine until the last shot that he nailed somebody. He got a little too fucking over anxious and hit him pretty good. And then he's standing there doing the fucking promo, holding the bat like a giant toothpick. But you can see the end of the bat is slightly bent. But anyway, the fake sword cut the fake ropes with a big sound effect, and Mosh Pit laid there and had a oh shit look on his face. It would have even worked if maybe without the slow-mo replay. It would have worked better if Mosh Pit had jumped up like he was going to come in, and Drew sees him and runs over to him and swings all in one motion. And boom, and the people would have been shocked, and the ropes, but they were just standing there looking at each other for however long. What'd you think?
Oh, I didn't. It was Happy and Mosh Pit. I didn't care. Cool spot with the sword. And that's what it was all about. It was really all about that spot. The match was irrelevant.
The match was just there to set up the sword spot because they had a cool idea, right?
Yeah, I think so. But at this point, I'm also wondering, is this show going to be any good? And then it got really good.
Yes. Well, not quite yet. Well, actually, yeah. It got better, and certain people got good. The next match was the Mysterios against The Miz and Logan Paul. And okay, this is one that could have been a disaster with an inexperienced celebrity, right? Logan Paul comes out. They never said how much the Pokemon card was worth. He's got a Pokemon card around his neck in a lucite container on a string, and supposedly it's the most expensive Pokemon card. And one of these days, I'm going to be interested enough to find out what Pokemon is. I know it's some type of card game, and the knowledge ends there.
The card is valued at $5.2 million.
Well, that's what I found out when I read the internet afterwards. What kind of fucking moron? I got news. I don't care whether he's a boxer, a fighter, a wrestler, a fucking guerrilla warfare commando. You got a $5 million playing card around your neck. I'm going to figure out some way to put you down, motherfucker. What the? Bringing out a $5 million card in a building full of 75,000 people. If Tony Chimmel was still the ring announcer, I guarantee he'd have put that in his pocket and he'd have been out at the fucking casino. But anyway, he's got the $5 million Pokemon card around his neck. Apparently, he bought it. So that, I could even understand Action Comics #1 for a couple of million. The first appearance ever of the most iconic superhero of all time, and it's now 90 years old or whatever, but a fucking Pokemon trading card from 1997. Anyway, this was as I said, the Miz and Logan Paul against the Mysterios. And I've got to apologize first. I'm sorry, not everybody's relative needs to be allowed to wrestle at WrestleMania. Logan Paul is an athlete, at least. He looks like an athlete. He's had shoot fights. Dominic Mysterio works hard. He can do stuff. You can tell he's put a lot into his wrestling training, but he has put absolutely nothing into his physical training, and he looks like the counter guy at fucking Circuit City. And this is another, and I love his father. Great talent. And I've never met this kid, and I'm not trying to fucking bury him as a horrible person. But I don't think that he looks visually like a superstar that should be wrestling on the biggest stage in the entire business. Do you?
He seems very happy to be there. He seems like he's trying really hard. I think, look, that was the debate when he debuted there. Should he go to WWE right away? They'll own the Mysterio name, and he'll be seen right away. Or should he go work in different places, work under a mask, develop himself? He kind of got pushed right to the main roster, and there's a place always in wrestling, maybe more so in the past than today, for the smiling, young, good-looking guy. But I said maybe not today, because it doesn't seem like it gets over the same way it used to. It's a different audience,
Well, but hold on now. Terry Taylor was a smiling, good-looking guy and got over in all the territories until he became the Red Rooster. Had good matches, was never the guy. There were a ton of smiling, good-looking baby faces that also...
I agree.
Didn't look like they were 17 years old facially and had an athlete's physique. And maybe a mask would have helped him. Why, since Ray wears a mask, why couldn't Dominic wear a mask? He's still got the same body, but at least you wouldn't see that he looks like a fucking high school kid. I mean, the match was not bad here, and
no,
I'm not saying Dominic sucks, but the visual is hard to take when there's so many good-looking, talented athletes out there. But Logan Paul...
Sign him.
I'll tell you.
Sign him. Yeah. Sign him now.
Yes. Very shortly after the match started, I said, this guy's got the aptitude for this. A nice power slam. He did a blockbuster. He's doing the moves, but also he's not rushing. He's got the facial expressions. And if you notice, a lot of the celebrities actually tried to sell shit in a more realistic fashion than some of the wrestlers. But again, I watched The Miz. This is the first time I've really watched a Miz match in a long time. I still don't see anything. I don't understand it. Don't get it. But Logan Paul, right now, he could be the top half of the AEW roster. And he's only had one fucking match. So they finally got some heat on Dominic. Tagged to Ray. He made the big comeback. They did the old Midnight Express, Rock and Roll Express, double vertical suplex knock one guy out into a roll-up false finish. I've always liked that spot. Tornado DDT by Ray for a 2 count and a big pop. And then Logan Paul does the Three Amigos. And he didn't rush it. You see, boom, the first one, he's laying there, and then the leg goes up. And then they realized exactly what he was about to do. And they hated it. And then he hit a beautiful frog splash.
And he did the little Eddie dance, and that was the touch.
Yes.
He knew what to do. He was great.
Yeah. And then the finish came. And boy, I wish we could play this and dissect it while you're watching the video on the screen, but I'm not sure exactly what was going to happen here. It was close to probably what did happen, but they didn't mean to do this. The Mysterios give the double 619 and hit frog splash and frog splash, right? But as soon as Ray hit the frog splash, Miz was there and grabbed Dom and picked him up for a body slam. And he was apparently, I guess on purpose, gonna slam Dominic on top of the pile where Ray was covering Logan Paul, Miz's own partner, somehow to break up the cover. I guess that was odd to begin with, because if you slam a guy on top of his partner who's covering your partner, the guy on the bottom gets the worst of it. But Ray hits the fucking frog splash and hooks a leg and starts turning over, and his face is looking right up, right as fucking Miz slams Ray's son's ass right onto fucking Ray's face. And he sold it, and you get everybody, well, what the fuck? Did you catch that?
I did. I said, what the fuck?
Yeah. And I'm like, what the? And I wrote, what was that supposed to be? And then Miz gets up and gives his shitty version of Dennis Condrey's full Nelson facebuster. 1, 2, 3. So that, obviously Logan Paul had to win this thing because they've got some money in him with the publicity he gets, the following he has, the notoriety, whatever, and the aptitude that he has for this. They need to give him a couple $1 million. But I bet you that chances are somebody, probably Rey Mysterio, asked everybody in the match not to slam anybody's ass on his face anymore. So he just picked him up, body slammed him on the man's face. God damn it. Anyway, so then Logan Paul and Miz celebrate until Miz looks around and turns around and grabs Logan Paul and gives him the shitty face buster. And then Logan Paul turns over like, well, what the fuck was that? And so did you what was their jealousy here of some description?
I'm sure that'll probably come out on Miz TV or whatever, but if it means we're going to get more Logan Paul, even if it's Logan Paul and the Miz, sign me up for that. This guy.
Yeah. Yeah.
He had size, athleticism. You mentioned his facial reactions. He was in it. He was treating it like it was an athletic contest. He was in it mentally. If you watched the way he reacted and moved. They had his brother. His brother's also a big social media celebrity. One of them was on a Disney Channel show that my kids used to watch. They had his brother on the pre-show. He's another one. He's got size. He was cutting promos. He was talking about his brother's going to kick ass. Sign both of them. I mean, it'll cost a lot, but there's so much you could do. These guys are great as wrestlers. I don't know. They probably would annoy the hell out of me as social media personalities.
Oh, yeah. I don't want to speak to any of these people, but I'll watch them wrestle. Yeah. And as a matter of fact, maybe what they ought to do is make Logan, what's his brother's name?
Jake.
Oh my God. Vince McMahon, another Jake, pal? No. Get Logan and Jake and make them the heel tag team champions. That'll draw you some money, but anyway, and I will be more than happy to watch Logan Paul beat up the Miz also. I'll take that anytime. Anybody that's going to be beating up the Miz, I'll jump on board for that.
Well, Jim, I personally wouldn't mind a Miz feud with Logan Paul because I think Miz can be entertaining. He's hit or miss. Sometimes he's really cringy. Sometimes he's really good. At least stuff I've seen, especially on the mic. Now, I also want to hear Logan Paul on the mic to see what they're going to do. But if you want to see the build-up and not hear it because you hate the Miz, maybe you just listen to something else.
I'd like to be listening to something else right now, but this is what I've got to work with. Here's an idea. You see all the fighters and the mixed martial artists and the athletes and everything, they've always got earphones, earbuds, some kind of ear dressing that they're listening to their own music or their own sound of their own voice or whatever they're listening to. They're in their own world. But you can always tell because they got the stems and the wires and the cords and the extension cords, and they're plugged into the wall. You can always tell they got these apparati, that's the plural of apparatus, the apparati in their ear. But with the Raycon everyday wireless earbuds, there's no wires, there's no stems, there's no sticks, there's no seeds. There's just great quality sound inside your head. You can't tell nobody. People standing next to you will not even know that you're not listening to them. You're ignoring the fuck out of them because you got your everyday earbuds in and they look, feel, and sound better than ever. They've even got the new awareness mode for when you need to stop your soundtrack and listen to the surroundings, such as the oncoming train, the blowing of the tornado sirens or whatever, and then you get back to music or podcasts, whatever you're watching. The Raycon wireless earbuds also are going to be perfect for the Paul brothers because they never fall out of your ears. I mean, you can shake, you can shimmy, you can move, you can gyrate and gesticulate. You can hang yourself upside down off the monkey bars. You can take a superplex off the top rope. These things will not come out of your... As a matter of fact, people have been buried with these things because they can't get them out of their head.
That is not true. You will be able to get them out of your head safely. It's just that they won't pop out frivolously as you're entertaining life on a day-to-day basis.
No, they never pop out frivolously. And yes, you're right. The mortician can get them out, but some people...
That's not what I meant. That's not what I meant.
Prefer to be buried with them because, like a fond item or a family heirloom or your Raycon wireless earbuds. Just let's put him in the ground with his ears plugged up. Folks, I'm telling you, you can shake your head till you get brain damage and see sparkly things. These won't fall out. They got 8 hours of playtime, 32-hour battery life. You get quality audio at half the price of the other premium audio brands. They've got 48,000 five-star reviews. 47,500 are from Meltzer, but the other people loved them too. And right now, our listeners here at the Drive-Thru can get 15% off their Raycon order at buyraycon.com/JCE. That's BUYRAYCON.com/JCE. Save 15% on the everyday earbuds.
That's right. And speaking of buds, lots of people have their buds come over and watch WrestleMania. Lots of people, they smoke some bud and watch WrestleMania. What else happened on WrestleMania?
Well, I'll tell you, bud. Larry Bud Melma. Larry Bud last.
Well, thank you very much.
So after the Mysterios Miz Paul match, here comes Stephanie, and she gets to be the McMahon to do the welcome to WrestleMania and all that stuff and everything, and introduced Gable Steveson. It's not Stevenson, as some people say, it's Steveson. There's no N in there. And he's, of course, the Olympic champion and the guy that they've signed as soon as he gets out of the college, the amateurs, whatever. He came out in an unfortunate knitted form-fitting shirt that looked sort of like a short girl's miniskirt. It wasn't flattering to his form. He looks great, except you would have thought that somebody would have said, hey, Gable, you're going to be on WrestleMania, introduced to the WWE audience officially for the very first time. Can you dress? Just like you're important somehow. Is that a generational thing where you don't care whether you look like a bum no matter what high profile event you're in?
You know, it's a weird thing. It's a generational thing. I think it's also just people don't care anymore. I still like to, I'll still wear a blazer when I fly. You know, I'll still wear something nice when I'm in the air.
All right, now you've got heat with me because I hate those people because you're in a goddamn death tube 6 miles in the air. Who are you trying to impress? You're sweating like
I also like wearing a blazer. I'm not sweating. I have a good blazer and it fits me nice and I'm not sweating bad. I got lots of pockets. I can hide stuff in like candy.
I could be naked on the goddamn airplane and I'd be sweating because of the lack of air circulation and all those other people's body heat. It's always stuffy and uncomfortable.
You were naked on a plane. Everyone else would be sweating, trying to jump off the plane.
Well, see, and I'd have more room for me.
That's not what I meant.
That was at the root of my plan.
All right, we were talking about something with wrestling here.
All right, well, it was that nobody wants to dress up anymore. And hey, that's why I don't leave the house, so I can wear my T-shirt and my fucking baggy sweatpants and don't have to fucking shave every day. But if I'm going to be at WrestleMania, I'm going to be dressed up. And speaking of dressed up, next was one of the more major stars of the two-night extravaganza, Becky Lynch. Now, she came out, she drives out on the stage in an SUV, the big-time Bex logos. She's got a new hairdo, a great robe. She looks like a star. And here she comes, and then there was they said where they were from. I didn't catch it or jot it down. But there was somewhere around a 70-piece college marching band with tubas and contortionists that came out on stage and played for quite some time. And what did it have to do with Bianca Belair? It wasn't, she's from Knoxville, Tennessee. If it had been the University of Tennessee marching band, okay. But it was just a marching band from somewhere in Texas, and they were playing her, I guess it was her music, but I've never heard it on tuba, piccolo, and fucking
bassoon.
Bassoon before. But here came Bianca Belair, and guess what she was doing? You'll never guess. She was smiling, skipping, and twisting her hair, twirling her hair around. And that is her entrance, and she ain't going to deviate. If somebody has broken into her home, kidnapped all of her children, and burned all of her fucking favorite DVDs, she's still going to be smiling, skipping, and twirling her hair. However, she earned it on this one. Becky Lynch and Bianca Belair for the women's title. If every women's match was like this, then I wouldn't knock women's wrestling. But therein lies the tale. So many of the women's matches are not like this. That's why I suggest that maybe they ought to go for quality over quantity. Instead of having half the matches on a card be women's matches just because they're women, find some matches that deserve to be there on the card like this one and book those. And don't worry about how many there are. You liked this one, didn't you?
I actually think this may have been the best match of both nights of WrestleMania. I thought this was a fantastic match.
I'll get close with you there. It was one of the best matches of both nights of WrestleMania. Very far up there.
One of the other matches you may like is probably my second best pick, but I do want to say one other thing, and I'm dying to hear what you think of this. I want to hear your critique. We hear all the bad ones. This is one that I hoped you liked, and it sounds like you did. But for everyone that shits on the WWE's developmental, and rightfully so in so many cases, the one thing Triple H got right, and he did right, was develop main event women talent.
Yeah.
Because Becky Lynch is Triple H, Charlotte Flair is Triple H, Bayley's Triple H, Next Generation or Next Crew, Bianca, Rhea, that's all Triple H. So, there may not be the Ortons and the Cenas, but the one thing they actually did, even better than they did with the guys by far, but they actually developed main event wrestlers in the women's division, and that's something to really be proud of, actually.
And they were on here. And they all got it, or they both got it right. Becky Lynch was aggressive because she felt like she was the wronged party, but Bianca Belair came back in it. It seemed like a struggle, that they were going for something. It was a contest. And I'm not going to
recount blow for blow here, but observations, Bianca Belair can sell and her shit looks good. At one point, she did a modified gotch lift. One arm with Becky, and both of them fell over the top rope. Bianca giving Becky a vertical suplex on the floor, even though both of them sold it just in the middle of the match. That's a little much, but if the worst thing that I can say is, well, they shouldn't do vertical suplexes on the floor and then go another 15 minutes or whatever, this was a good match. At one point, I think Becky may have been leading it. She's the heel. I don't know if they still do that these days in the modern world. I saw they got just a touch discombobulated and then got back on track. And then right after they got back on track, did you see the cannonball off top? Becky Lynch goes to the top. She's going to do one of those cannonball moves into Bianca, I guess, to end up sitting on her chest or whatever. But Bianca was either too far out or Becky's rotation was too tight, and she did a forward flip cannonball off top rope and kicked Bianca right in the fucking face. And they showed the slow-mo, her heel went right in the mush. And if you watch the original shot, when you watch the original shot they took of it, you see Becky fall and immediately look up and go, "Oh my God." And she goes to cover Bianca, but she's actually, "Are you still alive?" And they took a second there and then they got it together. But that was a hell of a potato.
Hey, if you're going to botch a move like that, that actually made it look more devastating.
Well, yeah, and then the announcers could say, "Well, I've never seen that before, a flipping drop kick to the face." And they went reversals and false finishes back and forth. Bianca went for the finish, but Becky overbalanced and she dumped her over the top rope. But then Bianca threw her back in and she rolled out the other side and grabbed Bianca's hair and pulled her into the post by the hair. I wrote, "This is great," in capital letters. Again, Becky Lynch slams her on the metal stairs, flat of her back. Boom. She beat the count at 9, and that got a pop, and Becky had a cow. But again, geez, enough injuries already. I liked the finish, and it got a big pop. Becky goes to pull Bianca up, and Bianca backflips off the turnbuckle and gets Becky up in her finish and hits that, boom, out into a 1, 2, 3, big pop. Great match. I apologize for raising my eyebrows and farting in your general direction when watch Bianca Belair. She's good. She's good. I've seen her a few times. She wasn't bad, but she was really good. And Becky was excellent.
This match was really good. Becky was excellent. Becky, from the moment she comes out there, again, we have never seen this haircut before, but she's got a look. She's a star. She carries herself like a star. It's funny that Bianca, no matter what's always smiling and doing the dance with the hair, no matter what. This is a grudge match. No matter what. But beyond that, she's got size. She's strong. She's athletic. Pretty. I mean, I remember telling you way back in NXT, I said there were two people there. You were just focused on Rhea Ripley, and I agreed with you about Rhea Ripley, but I said, keep your eye on Bianca Belair. And unfortunately, she's been used a lot better than Rhea Ripley. Not unfortunately for Bianca or her fans.
Yeah.
But unfortunately for Rhea Ripley, she hasn't been used anywhere near as well as Bianca Belair has. But again, Becky Lynch and Bianca Belair are main event stars, and there aren't that many.
Yeah. And they're getting fewer and farther between all the time. Who was the bunch that came out to the stage next? There was 40 people in cowboy hats going, oh, to start the Seth music. Who was that? The Morbid Tabernacle Choir or the Morbid Tabernacle?
The Morbid.
Choir?
Yes, I don't know.
So here comes Seth entrance. Seth freaking Rollins. Now that freaking is just installed in the middle of his name. The announcers can't just say one. They have to say all three. Seth freaking Rollins.
The commentators say it nonstop throughout the match.
Yeah.
I understand you want to say the guy's whole name, Seth Rollins. You don't want to just say Seth or Rollins. But that to say the whole thing, Seth freaking Rollins, every single time you mention him is ridiculous.
Well, it's actually when you have to say a guy's full name, even if he doesn't have freaking in the middle all the time, it's ridiculous because you've established, and I'm sure I've heard football announcers call the football players by their last name when they're in the middle of a play.
When I did commentary for Dennis once years ago, Dennis Carluzzo, for those wondering, I won't say who because he was a nice enough guy, but I did commentary with someone, and every single time he handed it over to me or said something to me, it was Brian Last. Hey, Brian Last, what do you think of this power slam there, Brian Last? And I didn't have the guts to say, or I didn't have the heart to say, please don't do that. But
heart, guts, spleen, kidneys. So anyway, Seth comes out, the feathered robe. He's swimming down the aisle. Did you see he was doing the breaststroke, I think, at one point. And there was a sign in the crowd, all roads, R-H-O-D-E-S, all roads lead to Seth, which I thought was witty. So then the time, as they say, has come. Music drops, dramatic pause, milking, more milking, pyro, blackout, wide shot. What did the voice say that they played in the arena right before the music hit? I heard his voice say something. I could not tell what the something was.
I don't know either. I thought maybe he said something about Wrestlemania. And I thought it was Cody, but I wasn't even certain of that because I couldn't tell.
I think it's Cody's voice, and they played something over the PA right as the music was to start. He was making some type of statement. The people in the crowd reacted to it, but I went back, turned the volume up, couldn't understand it on the broadcast. So that may have been a clue of what, as Finkel would say, his demeanor is going to be or something, whatever pithy statement he made, but I couldn't hear it. So the music starts. It's Cody's music. Cody apparently owns his music. And of course, Vince doesn't like to pay rights or use any music that doesn't come from in-house. And he makes the periodic exception for Punk in that contract thing that time, for Cult of Personality, for Ronda Rousey, Bad Reputation. He won't do it often. I've heard from his own lips, we don't pay for music, pal. But in this case, Cody has to own it, and he was able to bring his AEW music over to the WWE, and you know Vince had to love that. So that probably came as part of the package. I don't think Vince is paying for it. But when's the last time you heard the same guy's music in two different promotions of this? I mean, yes.
Yeah, a couple weeks ago.
When?
Jeff Hardy.
Oh, shit, that's theirs too, isn't it? Well, then there you go. What does Tony Khan have a music lawyer that should be protecting him from all these things?
Tony Khan is licensed music. The Jungle Boy theme song is Baltimora.
Baltimora, not Baltimorama.
Excuse me. Either way, he sucked.
It's Bananarama is who you're thinking.
Bananarama were good. Also, he has the Pixies for Orange Cassidy.
Well, yes, I'm not saying he won't license it, but the thing is, he's letting the guys use their own music, not trademarking it, and then they can be free to fly away and use their own music at other companies.
And by the way, I'm happy about that because I actually think Cody coming out to that music helped set the tone. It helped make the statement, actually.
Oh, it was huge. Yes. Cody Rhodes looked more like a big-time star and a major main event money ball player on this entrance and in this match than he ever has before. And yes, the music was part of it because it was instantly recognizable and the people, it added to their absorption of the whole thing. But again, Tony's playing this shit on his television show, and suddenly not only does one of his EVPs leave, but he can take his music with him and everything. I mean, they've just wiped their feet on poor old Tony's face this week. So, but anyway, the American Nightmare rose through the stage. It's the same thing, but it's a huge crowd, and it's a new coat of paint, and it's in a different environment. Remember, we talked about this. Even Kevin Nash, Diesel, was the lowest drawing WWF champion in WWF history up to that point in time, 1995. He goes to WCW, it's a new environment, and they think it's part of an invasion, and he's one of the biggest stars in the business.
You know, another big thing I think that was important, Cody came out there, popped through the stage, got his pop, started walking to the ring. No turning around and looking for Arn Anderson, no Brandy, no Dustin, no one. And I think that was important too, because Cody, on his own going to the ring, that also, if all of a sudden there was someone else by his side, it would have changed it.
Yeah, because that's when the AEW worm started to turn, when it became constant with these entourages and these processions and these multiple corner people, and everybody in my family and immediate social circle of friends is all going to come to the ring with me, and now with Brandy. All that stuff is what started the ball rolling on people not particularly giving a fuck about Cody, or giving a fuck about him in the wrong way. So now it was just him. He had the crowd. He's over. Huge pop. Big walk down. The announcer saying from undesirable to undeniable. This may have been his ulterior motive, his plan for the last 6 years. I'm going to go somewhere and make Vince McMahon sorry that he didn't see what I see in me, and he didn't put the title on my Daddy in the Garden.
I think that's a large part of it.
And so, and now, you know, thank you he took a little detour, but I mean, because let's face it, maybe they would have placated old Twinkle Toes, old Kenny. The WWE would have given him a contract and some money, and they would have put him on the roster. And personality-wise, if nothing else, even if you think that Kenny Olivier is the world's greatest living wrestling artist, the WWE, they might have used him in the ring, and he might have been able to do some shit in the ring, but the person that he is, and the personality that he is, and the personality you need to have to get to the top in the WWE, I guarantee you either Vince himself or somebody close underneath him would have run that son of a bitch off in about 6 months. They would have washed their hands of him as a person who didn't get what the fuck was going on around him in the wrestling business. And the Hardley Boys, I'm sure they would have been willing to give them money too if they made an offer to them, as they claim, when AEW was still in the imagining stages and the formative stages, just to get them to not go there. But do you think that in any way, shape, or form, either one of the Cucamonga kids would have been featured on top or allowed to do any of the horse shit that they do working for Vince McMahon?
You know, I don't want to go too off topic here, but I will say I did have the thought watching this, and it may have been around this match, now that I think of it, that the thought popped into my head, that I've been saying how Kenny Omega feels more at the world champion AEW than Adam Page ever has. And he did. And he does. Yeah. And I don't think he would have fit into this at all. Cody, you see him in there with Rollins right away. It was a different Cody than we saw in the entire run of AEW, I felt. And I don't know if Omega fits into this system. And he would probably say, you know, he doesn't fit into the system. Yeah. I don't think he fits into that system at all.
See, that's the point I was making before we talk about the match, is just that of all the executive vice presidents, the former members of the Bullet Club or whatever, Cody is the only one that could have hopped companies and actually done this, be on top, be in a main event situation, and deliver and get along with and work in the WWE. Harpo, old Twinkle Toes, old Kenny, he couldn't do it because one side or the other would have been in a mental meltdown over what the fuck's the matter with this fucking guy from the office side, or Kenny may very well have braided his hair and wrapped it around his neck from having to deal with them because he's off on his own planet. So that would not have been a fit personality-wise. And with the Bucks, no, they would never be featured on top in this company or be allowed to do any of that shit And they knew it. That's why they didn't take the offer, and that's why they didn't go. And they knew the offer was just to keep them from being involved in a startup company, and that was never going to be offered again. But, no, Cody's the only one of that group that could actually come here and do this and be a star. And that's what he did. And that's why the others are probably pissed at him now. And that's why the Cucamonga kids are changing their Twitter profiles to knock Cody. What do the kids call it? Passive aggressive. When you're too much of a pussy to just come out and tell somebody what you think of them, and you do it on the sly and behind people's back, that's called passive aggressive. That's what now the Hartley boys are doing to Cody, because he's in the big time and they're not. And people are starting to see through them.
Well, that's their game too. Well, I don't want to go too off, but Shawn Michaels was a to your face dickhead. With them, it's a passive aggressive shit. There's enough guys who have experienced it and have talked about it, maybe not openly, that it's a real thing. But anyway, another topic for another time.
All righty, so this match, two smooth veterans doing wrestling, back and forth. They did the vertical suplex spot over the top rope. I mentioned this. Somebody did it 3 or 4 weeks ago. I said, well, they did it safely. This one may have been even better, and Cody took the worst of the bump. He landed hard. Cody had something to prove here, and he was proving it. Seth started the heat when Cody came off the top. Seth drop kicked him in the ribs, and then, welcome back to the big leagues, bitch. And I'm sure a bunch of the trampoline cowboys over on the other side of the fence were just, oh, you no good son of a bitch. How dare you say that? A little heat. Cody came back. Clothesline over the top. A dive, and he hit Seth, and Seth took a backflip over the announce desk. One bobble. Cody did that turnaround crossbody off the top, and he was headed downwards. Almost missed it, but he saved it. They both saved it. And then he came off the stairs for a Hurricane Rana, and Seth almost lost him, but he caught him, and he saved it and buckle bombed him into the rail. And it was a great match. They had more heat and more comeback and false finishes. And finally, Cody, the big comeback at the end, Crossroads, 2 count, big pop. And they've always got to go to the buckle. Everybody's got to go to the buckle. He spent a while there, but Seth ended up giving Cody an inverted or upside down. For those of you who don't understand inverted, I don't understand why you'd go for this move. Superplex off the top rope, which it looks and is even more dangerous than a regular superplex, but it looked beautiful. But then they didn't let it register because it popped right back up into that Falcon Arrow bullshit. Have I mentioned that that's one of my pet peeves? I've told you about Vince's. One of mine is a superplex off the top rope where both guys immediately come right back up and do another fucking smaller suplex. But nevertheless, more back and forth. They couldn't get the double bridge in at that point. They were deep in the match, but then Cody hit the Cody cutter off the top rope, and that was a pretty thing. They were right on with most everything. Boom, 2 count. Then Rollins hits a pedigree 2 count. Big pop on that one because they thought that might be it. And they did a nice 1-2 exchange with some body English and language to it. Seth went to the ribs, and then he did those face kicks where he grabs the guy. What do they call them? Kawada kicks? Is that from...
from Toshiaki Kawada.
Toshiaki Kawada. Well, I bet you he was stiff too, but these didn't look too... Cody, at the end of the goddamn match, he had fucking not only just welts on his face, but it looked like boot prints on his forehead. So they were laying it in here. Cody hit the Crossroads out of nowhere, then a second one, then did the dusty jabs and the flip-flop and fly bionic elbow, and the place went nuts. Nice little nostalgia business there. Hits the third Crossroads, 1, 2, 3, huge pop. This audience, are they loving Cody because it's Cody and the presentation? Or are they loving Cody because now they get to fucking crow about taking somebody away from because all the AEW fans now and all the WWE fans are circling the wagons. One hates the other. They both say that the other company's matches are shit. Both of them usually are right. But now, is this going to be a deal where, unless they fuck up the booking some kind of way or Cody brings back his entourage, Cody's already a made man's going to be over just because they get to lord one over the AEW folks? What do you think?
I don't think that will have too much to do with it because I think such a small segment of the WWE audience is tribal like that. There's an element of it, of course.
Well, but everybody,
it's a bigger element
tribal. It's WrestleMania. Audience. So these are the most tribalistic people. This ain't just Des Moines on a Friday.
These are the people that are flying to a place so they could pop nonstop. And the plan is for Cody.
I know a couple places like that. You don't need to fly to them. Just pay the hourly rate. You could pop nonstop.
The reaction to Cody was fantastic. It's all he could have hoped for, and they have him slotted to be a babyface on Raw, from what I hear. But when you get away from that traveling audience, that'll be the test. How do the I think the question may be more, how do the fans in WWE take to him as a main eventer than it is, will they continue the booing? The only fans who would be doing that are fans who are watching AEW. So it'll be interesting to see how the crowd reacts after tonight as we're recording, after Raw. If the fans tonight start booing him and setting that precedent and the other fans see it, you don't know. If Vince sees that, you don't know. But Cody got off to a fantastic start. He came across like a star. Yeah. Hey, let me put Seth Rollins over because I hate his gimmick more than anything in the world.
Great match, though.
Great match. And when he stood there and he didn't know who his opponent was, and he got serious for a second, and you looked at his face, and he was concerned, I believed in that guy. I kind of wanted to see what was going to happen. I don't need the fake Joker laugh all the time.
Yeah, I mean, that's been the thing that I've liked about him since I met him in Ring of Honor. He can work his ass off, and for a guy that tall, he can do a lot of incredible things, and he can have great matches, and then just every time they have him speak or portray him in these fashions, it's counterproductive. But yes, Cody, back welted, face welted, beat up, but he got the ovation. He's over with the people, and they're still in Dallas tonight for Raw. They're still with the WrestleMania audience and ambiance.
I hope they get it right.
And they're in Texas, and the Rhodes family in Texas. You're right. So I'm thinking it'll be a week or two until they go to a normal place in the United States of America, if there are any anymore, where just a regular crowd of people come to see a wrestling match. Wait a minute, what am I saying now? Regular people don't even watch wrestling anymore. But we'll see what happens when it's not the most devoted of the devoted, and it's just a regular town and a regular WWE crowd, and we'll see, how they respond to him then.
And it's important to note the fans in AEW wanted to respond to him that way, and initially they did. He wasn't just some WWE guy. He was a guy that aligned himself with the Bucks and became part of their movement and got him there. And early on they did. The problem was when all of a sudden weird things would get introduced into programs or weird programs or promos that went nowhere, or Cody would show up and then disappear for weeks. I have to think all of that's going to be out the window now. So the biggest disappointment of Cody in AEW on camera is the way he was used.
Yeah.
Because it never made sense, and it was disjointed. And at a minimum, the disjointedness should probably go away now, because he's going to be on that show every week.
Well, and plus, the WWE machine, the producers, the people in various places will keep him from going out and sounding so grandiose and glorious about himself that he gets that kind of heat.
I was going to say, I saw an interview he did backstage after the match, like right after the match. They sent a girl up to him right away with a microphone. He's covered in sweat and blood and whatever else. He looked like he was in a fight. It looked great.
Yeah.
And it was the best interview I've ever heard him do. And it wasn't in front of the fans, and it wasn't that kind of interview, but he sounded so real and so genuine. And I thought back to the last interview we heard him do in AEW on TV, that weird, so what do you guys want to talk about? And I didn't get the contract I wanted. Like, it got to a weird point in AEW, and this is a chance to kind of start anew. And when I saw that interview backstage, you know, you see that and you're like, I like this guy. I want this guy to succeed here. So it'll be interesting to see how long they can ride the goodwill.
Dusty was the son of a plumber. Dusty Rhodes, he could touch common average people. He could talk to them. They would get behind him. He looked like one of them. Even in the 70s when he was wearing the furry robes and the psychedelic outfits and everything, it's always Dusty, whether he was the cowboy in the boots and the jeans or the psychedelic stuff in the 70s or whatever. At the root of it, Dusty Rhodes was a fucking redneck that came into money. And everybody could identify with that, and they liked him for it. And they got with him, and that's the way he came off. And he didn't, like I said a couple shows ago, if he did use a word with 4 or 5 syllables, it was one that he had made up. And you knew what he meant, even though it wasn't a real word, but it sounded, you know. But Cody has been the rich grandson of a plumber. He's got an entourage. He had a bus. He had a reality TV show, and he's using the real big words in their real context. And he got too big for his britches, as Mama Cornette used to say, in the fans' eyes, I think, or too. It was like he was dabbling in wrestling while he was a reality show star and an international celebrity and man of mystery. And that took him out of the place that Dusty had for so long in people's minds, which was this fucking guy that he's done his own thing and he don't care. He's comfortable with himself. He's a big fat slob and he kicks ass and we love him. It wasn't the same. But anyway, we shall see if they keep in the WWE, if they keep Cody away from coming off like Richie Rich instead of the grandson of a plumber.
Of course, if Cody and Brandy think back to previous times and they want to commemorate those times, maybe you don't want to get some photography. Maybe you don't want to, I guess it would really be just photography. Maybe you just don't want to do that. You want to get an oil painting.
Maybe you don't want to sketch yourself.
Oh, there's that.
Maybe you don't want to, use your face to cut some gorilla cookies. Maybe you just want an oil painting. No, I would think that with all the pictures that the private photographers, the personal photographers have taken of Cody and Brandy and their extended family and entourage, that they've got plenty of photographs that they can send to the folks at Paint Your Life, and they will get a giant, hand-painted, custom-made portrait that they can hang on their wall, and they can relive those memories forever of when they were all together on the nightmare bus that Tony Khan got for them. What a great idea. If you've got a family member or a friend or even someone you don't care about, but you want to make them feel bad, get them something nice and they'll feel guilty. Whatever it is, birthdays, anniversaries, weddings, paintyourlife.com can take any photograph or combination of photographs, and their team of world-class artists will turn them into a custom-made, hand-painted portrait. You can get the picture in as little as 2 weeks, and they will work off of anything: yourself, your kids, family, special place, lost loved one, cherished pet, even an action shot. Whatever action you may be getting, we're not going to be the ones to judge. You send that picture to Paint Your Life, and after they make multiple copies to laugh at you in their warehouse.
They don't do that. Don't even say that. They do not do that.
They do not do that. You will not know a thing about them doing that. They will.
No, they don't do that. You will not.
They don't do it. That's
you won't know a thing about the thing they're not going to do.
They won't. You won't know a thing about the thing they're not doing. And there's no risk on this. At paintyourlife.com, if you don't love the final painting, your money is refunded, guaranteed. And right now, as a limited time offer, you can get 20% off your painting, 20% and free shipping if you text the word DRIVE, D-R-I-V-E, to 64,000. That's DRIVE to 64000, 20% off. As a matter of fact, if you have all of your family members painted in the nude instead of clothing, you can get 25% off.
No, you can't.
Because they don't have to go through all that extra detail.
There is no extended nudity discount. Don't tell people that.
Well, that's different than the information I got. But wait a minute. Maybe I'm thinking of another company.
Yeah, I think so. I don't know what information you have. What information do you have?
Well, I had information that this one time you go in naked, you get in free. But that may have been a club rather than... There was a door charge if you were clothed. But, and fortunately, I got 15% off because I had a handcuff key in my pocket. But anyway, at paintyourlife.com, as I mentioned, there's no risk. Everything is done covered and safe. And you'll get your painting and you'll love it. And you'll hang it on the wall and you'll hug it and squeeze it and call it George forever. Paintyourlife.com. Celebrate the moments that matter most. Message and data rates may apply. Terms apply. Available at paintyourlife.com/terms. Keep your clothes on, cowboy.
You know, you brought up the bus before, and Cody obviously was at WrestleMania in a bus. He had his family there, had some other people there. And I believe I heard, I got to go back and check, it's been a long weekend, that in the post-Mania media scrum, now they're doing it, he said that Vince actually gave him a bus as one of the things in the negotiation. And it made me laugh because if that's true, he wanted Punk money from Tony, but he wanted Punk perks from Vince. Because wasn't Punk the one who got a bus years ago?
I don't know. I didn't know that if Punk was a bus fan or not.
I think Punk... I could be wrong.
No. Brock got a bus.
I think Punk got a bus, too.
No, Brock got a plane.
Vince gave Brock a plane?
Well, no, Brock got a plane.
Oh, that's on his own. What you do on your own, it's your own business.
Well, yeah, I'm just trying to match the star to their method of conveyance or transportation. So Brock had a plane. Maybe Punk got a bus. Why? I don't want the goddamn bus. I want a nice SUV is fine because then you can park anywhere. You can go through the drive-thrus. I don't want to sleep on the goddamn thing anyway, but Cody must like buses.
I think he just wants to have his family with him.
Boy, that's another weird thing.
What?
Isn't the whole idea of getting in the wrestling business to get away from your family?
Well, he has a family now, and they were...
Well, most of the guys in the wrestling business had a family they were anxious to get away from. For heaven's sake. It's nice he got a bus.
I guess so. Well...
And Luger got a bus. You see where that went?
Hopefully Vince stays in love with Cody a little bit longer than Lex, but...
You know what? Lex was not allowed to actually take the bus anywhere he wanted to go. He had to get on the bus and drive the bus, or not drive the, but ride on the bus all across the country.
Bus.
Well, he might have snuck up there once or twice, but he had to ride all across the country to do those promotional appearances, and he was about as comfortable as a fucking man with his ass on fire in the depths of hell on that bus. What was next?
I don't know. You have the list in front of you.
Oh, I've got notes. The Hall of Fame inductees were introduced. Taker music and entrance, and he went to both sides of the stage, got the big ovation. They did a package on Pat McAfee. I've always loved McAfee's packages. And they had footage of him training with Rip Rogers in his barn in Indianapolis. Did you see Rip? Or did you look that close?
I did see Rip. I was looking for Rip, actually, specifically.
As soon as I saw the barn, because Rip's tweeted pictures of him and McAfee in the barn, as soon as I saw the barn, I said, Rip's in there somewhere. Then they announced the attendance, 77,899. However, on the opposite side of things, Uncle Dave has just reported it was actually 4,274. So there's some discrepancy there. We're going to try to get the final numbers as soon as possible. And here we come. This one has been long awaited. Ronda Rousey versus Charlotte Flair for the women's title. One of the women's titles. We just had another women's title. That's another thing. How do you think Bianca Belair and
Becky Lynch.
Becky Lynch, thank you. I went blank for a second. How do you think they felt their big WrestleMania moment and they're in one of the two women's title matches? However, the referee was... go ahead.
I was going to say, and they were in the better one.
Well, yeah, and it was. And again, this is Rousey and Charlotte. probably contributed more to selling tickets or getting views or pay-per-views, if anybody but me still buys those or whatever, because it's a marquee match with the major names. But Belair and Becky had the advantage of not only going on first, but also both of them being pretty accomplished workers, whereas, Charlotte's great, but she's not a magician, and Ronda Rousey's had 32 matches. So each one of them had their bragging rights. We had a better match, but they drew the money, whatever. But the referee, I think there should have been a complaint lodged. Did you see the referee, Charles Robinson, Little Nate? A guy who thinks that Charlotte Flair's father is the greatest human being to ever walk the planet is the referee? This smells like a conspiracy. Apparently, I was the only one that noticed that.
Someone call Stephen Pinu. I don't know what you want me to do to help them.
So, what is the deal again with Ronda Rousey's eye makeup? I'm not sure I understand. She looks like, she was a fucking cast member reject of The Outer Limits. She just landed from some spaceship. Charlotte looks, when she comes out and gets in the ring, she looks like the biggest female star in wrestling because she acts like it and she thinks she is, and therefore the prophecy somewhat fulfills itself. But at least Ronda, after she got in the ring, had the mean face on instead of smiling. Michael Cole said Ronda Rousey's debut match was 4 years ago at WrestleMania. I thought it was 3 years ago at WrestleMania. Who's right?
I thought it was longer than that. Hold on, let me check.
I'm pretty much going to guarantee you that it was 2019. Checking. I wish we had the Jeopardy music.
I'm checking here. It's for some reason the first thing that came up was actually not that, but when she appeared at WrestleMania with The Rock. Before that,
it was the match with Stephanie and Triple H and her and Angle. It was at the stadium in New Jersey. I swear the year was 2019.
It may be WrestleMania 34.
Okay. Well, no, that ain't it, because that would be 4 years. It was not 4 years ago.
Okay, I don't know.
Well, God damn it! Can you not Google into the Googler?
This Google
machine?
Sucks. Hold on.
Well, get a different Google. Get a good Google.
WrestleMania.
It was in New Jersey, in the stadium, and it was in April of 2019. I'm going to bet you money. Well,
it was WrestleMania 34.
What year?
2018.
Well, God damn it.
New Orleans. I was right. You had me go off the one I had that was right.
No, they were in New Orleans in 2014.
And again in 2018.
Ah, well, fuck. Well, they shouldn't repeat themselves. All right, anyway. This match was a fight. And if you noticed, every match on this card, except, what did we skipped something, or did we skip something? Yeah, the multiple man thing. But every match on the card, you know who the baby face is and who the heel is. It's not a tumbling competition. It seemed like a contest, like people were struggling for something. The biggest company on the biggest show of their year, the talent stepped up. Even though the booking ahead of time was nothing to write home about. And a lot of people have been presented in serious, or not in non-serious. A lot of people have been presented in frivolous fashion, but the talent took this seriously, and you understood what was going on for the most of it. Again, Rousey, she's not experienced, but with just one opponent, instead of being in a battle royal where she got lost and wandered around, or instead of a multiple person situation, it's easier. Charlotte can help her out a little bit. And Ronda has been a mixed martial artist. So as far as a fight goes, whether it's a legitimate competition or a worked competition, she kind of gets that one-on-one, I'm against you type of thing. She used the judo throws. Charlotte controlled most of this, but Ronda would get in her things that people want to see her do. It was not smooth all the way through. And Charlotte went for her double moonsault and missed both of them. One on purpose, one by accident. But I liked that deal where she hung Ronda in the tree of woe in the turnbuckle and then got up top and put the Boston Crab on her in the buckle while she was upside down. Then Ronda sits up and judo throws her off the top. And it wasn't smooth, but at the same time, it looked like people fighting to get an advantage. Rousey with the ankle lock. Charlotte reversed it. Ronda kicked her into the buckle there and then kind of got lost and paced around a little bit. But Charlotte hit another big move for a 2 count. Ronda get the ankle lock again. They traded some stiff kicks, and Charlotte goes first time for the figure 8 with a really deep, wild bridge on that, and Ronda reversed it and got the reversal of a figure 4, and both of them roll out to the floor. So Charlotte takes a hard bump. Well, actually, no, Ronda rolled out. Charlotte's on the apron, and Ronda jerks her off the apron and throws her onto the fucking floor. She hit hard. Ronda was going to run toward Charlotte on the floor so that Charlotte could catch her and do the SOS, a Scott Hall fallaway slam into the barricade. And this was just greenness. Ronda runs, and instead of coming with a crossbody where she could catch her, she kind of dove with her head going past her, and the balance was off. But she says Charlotte saved it. Ronda hit a Piper's Pit and got the 1, 2, 3, but as soon as the 3 came down, Charlotte had gotten a foot on the ropes, and Robinson waved it off. Oh, no, he saw it just in the nick of time. It didn't quite have the artisticness as when Tommy Young used to do it, but he got the point across. Again, Charlotte comes back on the offense. And then finally, Charlotte's going for a step over, like she's going to go into the figure 4, and Ronda's supposed to kick her off. So she goes into the referee and into the turnbuckle. But again, greenness, Ronda, she just rushed it. She rushed the kickoff. And as a result, she missed. She pushed over Charlotte's ass the first time. Charlotte, expecting a push, started going forward, then realized it wasn't the push, and then Ronda gave her a quick second push, and she had to bobble a step and go into the referee. Aspiring wrestlers out there, there's an easy way to do this and an easy way to communicate with your opponent ahead of time on getting the timing on this. When you've got the guy's leg and you're about to do the step over where you turn your back and expose your ass to the fucking guy on the floor's face so he could kick you off, always tell him, I'm going to have your leg and I'm going to swing my left leg over and plant my left foot. When I plant my left foot, I will be braced with slightly knees bent so that I'm ready to push off. And I'm going to stop for just 1 second in the turn and the planting of the foot so it doesn't look like I'm waiting on it. You need to have your foot not on my ass cheeks, but straight in my taint, because that's where you're not going to slip off, and push then. Otherwise, it always gets fucked up and it looks hokey when somebody's gotten a little breeze of a push and runs full steam into the fucking corner. Nevertheless, at that point, Charlotte spears the referee because she got kicked off. Ronda gets her arm. Charlotte's tapping. There's no ref. Ronda goes to get the referee. Turns around. Charlotte comes with the big boot. 1, 2, 3. Holy shit. And as I wrote, what a fight. Not as good a wrestling match as Becky and Bianca, but a stiffer fight between the two of them. It was even with some herky-jerkiness, this was good enough to be in its spot on WrestleMania. That's my thoughts.
I don't think it was bad or anything, but whatever. Because of where it was on the card, or because of everything we just saw, I wasn't that into it, and nothing about the match pulled me into it. I wasn't I saw some people try to excuse the sloppiness. It was sloppiness.
It was sloppy.
I couldn't really get into this match. I have not really gotten into Ronda Rousey's return at all. It's missing something. Well, it's missing a lot.
Well, we've talked about all the things that it's missing, and some of the things maybe is beyond their control, but some of them they could have controlled. But it comes down to she was protected before, and she's not been as protected this time around with exposing the things that she can't do. Just because she's not done this often enough. Again, maybe I'm just grading on what all I've watched over the course of this weekend and girls' matches in general, but these two female matches, women's matches, I could take this either because of the talent in the wrestling or the star power. In this case, I could take it, but I don't want to see 5 girls in a ladder match. But you're right. The clock is ticking on Ronda before a lot of people figure out, she's not really as good as we thought she is, and she doesn't really beat anybody in a minute anymore. But that's, to be expected. But it's your show.
Well, we're not done with night 1 of WrestleMania.
Oh, well, that was the main event, but that wasn't the last thing. Because the last thing was a talk show, the KO show. I mean, this is what people were waiting for, and they were chanting Austin before Owens even said a word, but he comes out in the, meager little set in the ring, the KO show, the signs, and etc. And he did a good promo to start this thing out because Owens can talk. He doesn't sound like he's reciting lines or had a script memorized or somebody told him to say these things. He sounds like he's coming up with it off the top of his head and just with the little asides and, inflections that he puts in and the way he sometimes, I got an idea, it's natural. And he, ranted at the Texans. He apologized for telling the truth about their pathetic state. And then he ran Austin down, said he was going to pour beer down his throat. There was nothing Austin was going to be able to do about it. And the music, the glass breaks and hits and interrupts him, and the babies come in the air. And here comes Austin. And he looks basically the same. He was bald, so it doesn't matter if he lost his hair because nobody would know. He's the same weight. His arms look good. He looks like Stone Cold Steve Austin. If you get a close-up in high def, you can tell he's got a little more age on his face. And he obviously doesn't move like he did 25 years ago, but it looks like Austin. And they loved it. And after he did the both ends of the stage thing, he goes back and he's gone for a while and he comes back out riding the ATV and circled the ring and they're chanting and blah, blah, blah. And we knew that they were going to come to some kind of physicality. And let me ask you this before we even get into it. Do you think in hindsight, because if they didn't advertise this as a match, it's probably because Austin didn't want him to, because he didn't want to take the chance on advertising a Steve Austin match and not being able to deliver it. I would think that would be the only reason why they didn't advertise that this was going to be a match. But then he got out there and did it. Should they have called this a match from the start? Would anybody have been upset if they had advertised this as a match through and through and they did the same thing?
What we had originally heard was there was going to be a match, and then we heard that Austin thought better of it and that we were going to get this interview segment. The buildup has been atrocious, despite some good promos from Kevin Owens. You know what? I don't know how big a difference it would have made. That's the question. If you bill it as the last appearance, the last match of Steve Austin, would it have made a big difference? I will say it was kind of cool watching it get set up and it happening and watching Austin's face and just the little moments where the crowd realized, oh shit, we are going to get a match. Like where he said, well, I had my first match in Texas or in Dallas. And then you start realizing, oh shit.
Yeah.
We may be about to get a match. I'm not going to complain too much. I really enjoyed it. I really liked it. Wasn't a good build-up. But if they were going to try to keep it a secret that he was going to work a match and not bill it as a match, I can't nitpick too much. Like you said, maybe he asked for that.
It may have been, it may have been a thing where, they vacillated back and forth. But, Austin did a little verbally, instantly, he was kind of all over Owens. You stupid son of a bitch, and et cetera. And the people were loving it. And Owens had a great line. He said, if I were you, if I'd been born in Texas, I would have moved to Mexico. It's right there. Right down the road. But the premise of how they got into the fight was that Owens let Austin on a secret. He invited him to the KO show not to talk, but to have a fight. And Owens says, even though I have a bad back, I challenge you to a no-holds-barred match or whatever, because he talked about all of Austin's bad body parts. Someone may have suggested that to him via podcast a few weeks ago. And he wants a no-holds-barred match. So Austin, meanwhile, has been letting the heel run his mouth and percolating and with that face. And he started milking the people with the facial expressions, as you said. And he said, well, I had my first match in Dallas. I could have my last match here. He said, if you want to see me have my last match here, give me a hell yeah, which they did. And then he started to ask, give me a goddamn ref. And he's give me a god. And he realized, can I say this? I don't even know anymore. He just said, give me a god ref. And the ref comes in and the bell rings and here we go.
It was just so cool, though, because it was in that brief moment where everyone there realized this is going to happen.
Yeah.
Say hell yeah, everyone does it. He could still pull back. I wish I could, but I'm here just to kick his ass, whatever. When he did it the second time, it was, oh shit, we're about to get a Steve Austin match. And then it happened.
Yeah. And also, I mean, he's just so good and he knows he's got the people. Like the one time he said, I tell you what, about 75,000 people in 5 seconds are all going to be calling you an asshole. And then they say, asshole. He could make them, throw their babies in the fucking lion cage at the zoo if he asked them to. Anyway, they start the slugfest, the mud hole stomp. He shot Steen off, and Steen took the Ray Stevens bump into the turnbuckle. He was pulling out all the stops. Let's face it. Steve wasn't getting his legs up as high. He wasn't getting as much force in the stomps, and he wasn't moving like he used to. But that was, again, 20 years ago. And I've said before, he was so over the mud hole stomp spot. They looked like shit 25 years ago. But he was so over, nobody could see it. It was snow blindness. It was mass hypnosis. He could do no wrong. Now that they're getting a chance to see him like that and hadn't seen him in so long, he could have been in a fucking iron lung, as Chief Jay Strongbow would have said. They still wouldn't have been able to see it because it's Austin. So, and then, by the way, did you notice, unless I am mistaken, unless I had skipped through something and didn't see it, when Owens posted Austin and started getting some heat on him and pulled a table out from under the ring, was that the first table of this show?
You know what? I didn't even think of it. It may have been. You may be right.
Uh-huh. And guess what? Stone Cold threw Kevin Owens through the fucking table. And again, because he is a major star and knows exactly how this business works, I guarantee you that Steen is the one who suggested that they do that spot. And then Austin went to all the producers and said, hey, nobody else use a table. We're using a table. And we're the main event. That's what you're supposed to do. So anyway, then they fight out into the crowd over the railing. Brian, was that the first time on the show that anybody'd gone over the railing out into the crowd and had a big fight?
I believe so.
Wow, it's amazing how this works. Because now people are going crazy. Oh, shit, they're out in the crowd. Not, hey, they did that 3 minutes ago. Owens suplexed Austin on the floor. I wouldn't have taken that if I was a retired multimillionaire movie star, but it's Austin. Big slugfest back to ringside. Austin slams Owens off the barricade onto the desk. That was a fucking hell of a bump. Drank some more beer, beat up Owens on the desk, spit beer on him. Owens gets away and gets on the ATV and can't figure out how to start it, which is classic. And also, I don't know whether they have a lot of ATVs in Canada. I wouldn't know how to start one up. But Austin jumps on his back and starts it up and drives Owen to the stage and beats him up on the stage and suplexes him on the stage. And then takes him to the other end and suplexes him there so all the people on the other side of the stadium can see it. And then throws him down the ramp. And Owens is a combination of a human ping pong ball and a super ball, one of those rubber ones that, boom, it bounces twice as high as when you dropped it. This is his moment. And then finally, Owens hits a stunner and gets a 2 count, just to give him a little more jeopardy there. He gets the chair, he swings, he hits the top rope when Austin ducks. Bam Bam, the old Bam Bam spot. I first saw that 40 years ago. This was one of the better ones I've ever seen. He fucking nailed it. And as soon as the chair bounces off Owens' fucking head, Austin's there with the stunner. Boom. 1, 2, 3. And that's what they came to see. And then they had the beer bash and then a second stunner. And then more beer, and he called the announcer, Byron Allen, in, gave him a stunner, had a beer with his brother. Austin is evergreen. He can do anything he wants. He's bulletproof. They love it. Whatever. Bring his brother in, bring his dog, whatever the fuck. So that was the way to go home, don't you think, on the first night?
I thought there were so many good matches. I shouldn't say so many good matches. There were really good matches on night one. There were some great moments, and the Steve Austin interview segment into the match was incredible. You didn't know you were going to get a match. Even if you were someone who thought you were a few weeks ago, the best is that you had a sneaky suspicion maybe it could happen. And then it happened, and he didn't embarrass himself at all. He was great. The kicks looked like shit. They always did, but they really did. They really looked like shit. But beyond that, it was Steve Austin, and it was the perfect way to end night one, and it was one of the better WrestleMania. Night one itself was one of the better WrestleManias in recent memory.
Well, yeah, the Miz and Logan Paul match was good because of Logan Paul and everybody, but Logan Paul was the standout. Lynch and Belair was that the best women's match I've seen in quite a while? Probably. Cody and Seth, to me, was the match of the night. The Austin's business was that was the money. That was the pro wrestling angle match segment of the night that everybody wanted to see. The best in-ring match, I thought, was Seth and Cody, which, again, is, when you look at the lineup, is not much of a surprise. But what may be a surprise, Becky and Bianca weren't too far behind. And then I wasn't as hard on Rousey and Charlotte as you were, because I went in with lowered expectations based on what we've seen Ronda doing, but people wanted to see it. So, but overall, like I said, best match, Cody Seth, best segment of pro wrestling, Austin and Owens for night one.
I go with Becky and Bianca being the best match, Cody and Seth being the second best, and really, really good. I thought Cody Rhodes had a really special night. And the Austin thing was just fantastic. You saw Steve Austin. I mean, we've seen him pop up and do different things, like give Jonathan Coachman a stunner and different things throughout the years. This was classic Austin now. And it was really cool to see.
And, you know, part of the problem, I think, and especially on the second night, I started getting this. Everybody that the people really wanted to see are no longer regularly active, if active at all. The biggest stars, the people they wanted to see, the people they got the biggest kick out of, Vince, Undertaker, Austin, Triple H, everybody that was, you're seeing, okay, the people live. Oh my God, we're seeing Vince McMahon and Steve Austin in the ring. That is the biggest money drawing program of all time. They're also 176 and one's nearly 60. Triple H, even though he just had to retire because of the heart issue, whatever, he started with the company in 1995. Undertaker, the Hall of Fame, the retirement, blah, blah, blah. And then they wanted to see Brock, who's part-time, and really Roman Reigns and potentially Rousey while it lasts because of her mainstream name are the only big-time mainstream names that are there regularly, right? If you took the celebrities and the returning veterans off of both these nights, there would have been a lot of people waiting to pop. And that's not good for regular business or for the future because as we can see, they've run through the Hall of Fames. They've run through Vince ain't going to have another match, one would hope. So
Well, Jim, that was indeed night one of WrestleMania 38. And of course, what would WrestleMania be without a night two of WrestleMania 38?
A lot better.
In Dallas, Texas. And, well, I guess let's start like that, like I did with night one. Jim, what did you think overall of night two?
Well, they started again with America the Beautiful. This was Jessie Jane Decker. Whoever that, where do they find these artists?
Nashville.
They're in Texas. They're not in Nashville.
I know.
She's a country music. Have you heard of her doing anything ever?
Yeah, she is married to a football player. And also she was like the spokesperson for one of those diet pills. She was all over commercials for a few years there.
Well, see, I've never been on a diet. Fortunately, I've been able to keep my girlish figure. But anyway, the song was written about Abdullah the Butcher. What? You didn't know this?
No, I did not know this.
Oh, beautiful forks in the eyes and gig marks on the head. So after that...
Hold on. Did you just come up with that?
Yeah.
Wow. Impressive.
It was better than what she was doing.
Option 2 was this a song you sang in the locker room years ago?
No, that was a Christmas carol I wrote about the Road Warriors. They liked that. Diving through the ropes to get out of the fucking way. Here they come again. Taters all the way. Ha, ha, ha. So anyway, then they had an open package with Mark Wahlberg. And he has something to do with wrestling somehow.
I'm guessing maybe Nick Khan was his agent. I'm not exactly sure what he had to do with any of this other than they want to get celebrities involved.
Well, he called it the most stupendous two-night WrestleMania in history. How many two-night WrestleManias have there been now? Is this the second or the third?
It's one or the other. I'm not even certain.
So history don't last as long as it used to. Then Triple H came out. And this was better than Stephanie because they really wanted to see Triple H. And he did the big entrance and spit and he milked it forever because, again, he deserved it. He didn't get to do a retirement match because of the happenings. So this was his moment. And, the people wanted, that's what I'm saying. The people wanted to see the former stars and icons and people of the previous generation just come out to do an entrance and stand there and talk to them as much as they wanted to see any of the matches involving any of the new people. When time on pay-per-view was actually valuable, when WrestleMania or anything else, we had 2 hours and 50 minutes, or elsewise the fucking finish of the main event was going to get cut off of a lot of cable systems and you were going to have to give a lot of money back. Vince would have a cow on the entrances and the milking and the stalling that they can do now just because time matters not. They've got a massive pay-per-view window. They can go over 4 hours and the Peacock doesn't care. So, but he did the welcome to WrestleMania and the pyro and he left his boots and microphone in the ring, which was kind of a nice touch. And then we go to 3 teams who almost every one of them, except for Randy Orton, should leave their boots in the ring. One of the tag team titles was on the line in a triple threat match. RK Bro, Orton and Riddle, the Street Profits, and the Alpha Academy. Do you remember I mentioned when we were talking about the previous night's festivities, I'm not going to watch any multi-man matches because then I'm just going to be sour. They're not going to be any good. None of them are. Same shit over and over. We will move on. However, after the finish, Gable Steveson, who we met the previous night, came in for a celebration with, I guess, RK Bro or whatever, and he got in a beef with Shorty Gable and gave Shorty a belly-to-belly. So you got Shorty Gable and Gable Steveson, and they're both named after Dan Gable because they were both amateur wrestlers, but in this case, Steveson belly-to-bellied Shorty. He was still dressed like a bum, by the way, Steveson. That was that. What did I miss? Anything?
I think they're pronouncing his name Steveson, not Steveson.
Steveson. Oh, boy. You know what? They need to just be like Rico Constantino. Because he actually did not have an N in his name. It was C-O-S instead of C-O-N-S. But everybody said it Constantino, so I just put the fucking N in. He just learned to live with it. You think he should learn to live with it?
It's a weird name to say.
And he'll have a butler named Jeeves. There comes Steveson and Jeeves. And if Jeeves' son was to be in there, there's Steveson and Jeeves' son. Let's move on. Bobby Lashley, what have you done to deserve what you are about to receive? I was so scared about this. And after we saw it, there was good reason to be. It wasn't as bad as I had envisioned because almost nothing could be, and the finish, thankfully, was the right finish. But my God, have they given up on almost? Have they said, okay, fuck it. We're seeing what everybody else is seeing. Let's cut bait and run. What do you think?
I don't know. I mean, that suplex was interesting.
Okay, the way to have this match, in my opinion, would have been to not to have it. That's the only thing I can come up with because, yes, Lashley needs a win and needs to be his image rehabilitated somewhat after he got beat and then he was concussed and couldn't be in the Elimination Chamber, and he needs to come back looking good. But I feel like, number one, I missed something. He was still a heel and still with MVP when he got carried out of the Elimination Chamber, right?
In Saudi Arabia, that's right.
In Saudi Arabia. Did MVP get out of Saudi Arabia? Maybe that's what they're covering up. They're trying to misdirect us, because where's MVP? He's still over there. They've got him tied up in a closet and they're pissing on him. Because all of a sudden, this heel, the leader of the Hurt Business, the guy that's been hurt locking everybody, and MVP's his manager, and he's a heel, and suddenly he's gone and he comes back. MVP's nowhere to be found, and he's mad at almost that we don't know whether they've ever even met, but they're pointing at the WrestleMania sign. What did I miss in Bobby Lashley's life that caused him to fire his manager and change his ways?
It turns out it was less a concussion than one of those situations in an old movie where someone bonks their head and they say, what's going on? What are these people doing here? Why am I living my life this way? I need to go back to who I am. And that's why there's no more Hurt Business MVP or good qualities to Bobby Lashley's on-screen character.
So what you're saying is somebody needs to take a ball-peen hammer and bop him again and it comes back. Then he remembers.
There's been no explanation other than he needed a match, want to get him on the show, he's healthy enough. We have nothing else for almost. Let's get him out there all of a sudden as a babyface. There was no turn, it was just he appeared weeks after he had previously appeared as a different person.
Okay, on the other side of the coin, Vince McMahon loves giants. He loved Andre. He loved the Big Show. He loved Mabel at one point. He loves big guys. And obviously, they have overprotected almost to the point where he has been impervious to anybody and just lays waste to people, handicap matches, whatever. The only way that I could explain this match and finish is if Vince has decided, you know what? Not only is he not any good, he ain't going to get there. because the Vince McMahon that I knew would never have beaten a giant like that with the build that he's had unless he had soured on the whole thing. I mean, I know when his dad got Andre had already been in the business, 7-8 years. And he knew how to work, and there wasn't the odd just standing around that almost exhibits, but everybody had to know he would be a project. So perhaps this project has come to an end.
What giant has Vince McMahon gotten right since Andre? Giant Gonzalez was put into a furry bodysuit.
Well, but now
he was already limited physically with what he could do. No,
you can't.
You bring in the Giant, the Big Show from WCW. They immediately gave him a stupid name and took whatever energy he had coming off WCW TV, they got off him pretty quickly.
Right.
And
but
he
now
floundered for years.
You can't blame anybody on Giant Gonzalez. Poor Jorge. He was a wonderful person, but that was unsalvageable. But go ahead.
If I went to you or Bill Watts or Eddie Graham, not to put you in their league, but you get what I'm saying. If I went to any of you and said, hey, I got this guy, he's 8 feet tall, he can't do anything, he can't talk, taught him to do a few things, is there anything you can do to hide everything and get a payoff out of him?
Yes.
Well, they didn't do that.
No, they haven't done that. But it's called stealing a pay-per-view or stealing a house or stealing a gate. We've talked about it before. Somebody that's that visual and that size, don't even put them in matches. Just have them walk out and fucking pick somebody up and throw them away 3 or 4 weeks in a row, and then get them involved in somebody that has somebody that has enough experience to get by with something short and sell tickets to it. And the idea is you're probably not going to see that fucking Giant again.
So again, going back to my question, and there's been others, Giant Silva, there's been Dabo Kato, there's been various other people throughout the years. Great Khali. What giant has Vince McMahon ever done right or booked right or done anything really smart with since Andre? Because even the Big Show has been nothing but missed opportunities to me for a long time.
Yeah, you got me there, I guess. Well, anyway, almost made it, but here was this match. I sat down, I started watching it, and I was waiting for something to critique, and it was some flat-footed punching and almost squeezing Bobby Lashley's head. I'm squeezing your head. I'm squeezing your head. And then at one point, Lashley's in the corner and almost charges in and ran right past Lashley and ran into the turnbuckle of his own accord. And Lashley's like, where the fuck did he go? And then they set up to do it again, and this time Bobby moved in the same place. Bobby moved. It was like take two. And then poor Lashley, he got to make a comeback on the guy while the guy was leaning over the top rope, looking like he was trying to puke over the top out onto the floor. He was just leaning over the top rope, and Bobby Lashley is hitting him in the back. That was a comeback. And then Lashley tried to put the hurt lock on him, but couldn't get it. And I actually wrote, where is Giant Gonzalez? Almost picked him up in a fireman's carry and just didn't drop him accidentally, but just dropped him. That was a move, I guess. A long bear hug. A snap suplex by Lashley onto Almost. So right there, I mean, it wasn't a vertical suplex, but still, if you're suplexing the 7'4", 400-pound giant, his time is coming near. And then finally, I've seen this twice now, and I don't understand it. A spear to the back. I saw it in this match, and I saw it in Reigns and Brock. Wasn't it Reigns and Brock? Or was it, it was Reigns and Brock. Well, anyway, Lashley speared the Giant in the back, and and then he hit him with another spear in the front. 1, 2, 3. Thanks for coming, Almost. If the object was to get Bobby Lashley a good win, this was not a good win. It was a win, wasn't a good one. He looks worse than Lashley looks worse than he ever has by working with this guy who can't do anything. And if the object was to bury Almost, well, I guess they did that. Explain this one to me, Lucy.
Well, again, I can't explain it, and going to my previous comments about Giants, I can't say that this is for sure the write-off of Omos or not, because they booked Giants poorly. Almost lost, went off his feet. So I guess that's it with him and Lashley. I don't know what they're going to do with him now, and if they just put him right back with MVP and make him a heel again, then what was the point of this whole thing? So they can't be doing that, but otherwise, why not keep MVP? He's one of the best talkers they have. Look, night 2 wasn't great. And at times it was awful. And it was a string of just a multi-man match and this. You were just waiting for things to kind of get going, and it took a very, very long time. It took an old man taking a stunner for it to happen.
Well, and even that was getting going in a preposterous direction. That will be remembered forever because of the absurdity of it. But speaking of absurdity, let's go ahead and get this one out of the way. I got to be honest with you. When I got up on Sunday morning, or Monday morning rather, today, and was going to watch the Sunday night festivities, I did get on the internet. I didn't get on the internet Friday night, Saturday morning until I watched Ring of Honor because I didn't want the FTR Briscoes match to be spoiled. And I didn't look in advance at the Saturday night WrestleMania because I didn't have time, and I thought, okay, it's going to be okay. But I did peek, and everybody on Twitter, I think, almost trended again. Generally, now I don't even have to do anything to trend on Twitter. It's just people saying, well, wait till Cornette sees this. And I trend somehow that way. But everybody was like, oh, we've got to hear what Cornette's going to say about Johnny Knoxville and Sami Zayn. And that's when I thought, what the fuck? So I have to watch this. Because normally I would have said, okay.
You watched it?
Yes, I watched it. Because
wow.
Well, everybody was like, it meant so much to them, apparently, that they weren't the only ones that had to suffer through this abomination, that I would somehow watch it and articulate the things on our platform here that they are not able to say in public places because it stunk, it was rotten, it was fucking abominable, and people were offended by it. So, okay, I'll watch it. Because, I mean, that's kind of the attitude I was going to have with it anyway. I just didn't plan on critiquing the whole thing. But all I could think, just even when they started, before they'd ever even got into it, just when the bell was ringing, after the entrances, Sami Zayn, a good old El Generico, and Kevin Owens, Kevin Steen, I've said this before, in Ring of Honor, they were the pains in the ass. We had a great talent roster. They worked hard. They mostly showed up on time. Nobody was really fucking up too bad. It's just that every time that you had to talk to either one of these two, maybe it had something to do because they were French Canadian. Maybe it had something to do because they're friends and birds of a feather flock together, or birds of a feather shit together, whatever the saying is. But they were the biggest pains in the ass. They always had some question, some issue, some conflict, something need to be resolved. I think I've told everybody, Zayn sent Delirious a 2.5-page single-spaced email one time talking about trying to get his airport parking paid for by the company in Montreal. It was just incessant, and they always had something to say about everybody else's business, including they thought my wrestling acumen, booking, whatever, it was cheesy. It was It's not like the young folks today want to get into. It's cheesy. It's old-fashioned. It's kind of goofy. Let me just remind everybody that this is the biggest wrestling event in the world, and Sami Zayn, Mr. Expert, is bumping like a Super Bowl for a 50-something-year-old jack-off reality TV star in the biggest abomination of a parody of a wrestling match that's ever been held by anybody. AEW don't have nothing on this bullshit, because they not only made sure to make the wrestling business look like garbage, but they spent a lot of money to do it. So, you know the old saying, Brian, the old joke, you go up to a girl, you say, will you fuck me for $1 million? Hell yeah. Well, will you fuck me for $1? No. What do you think I am? We've already established that. Now we're just haggling over price. So we've come to find out that Fat Boy Steen and fucking Skinny Boy Generico, they don't mind making complete asses out of themselves and doing the worst, offensive, unfunny bullshit, making fun of the wrestling business that they possibly can, as long as they're getting a big check for it. Otherwise, they got principles. Fuck you both. Especially Generico, because at least Owens was in there with Stone Cold Steve Austin. So he got the better part of the deal. Fucking the red-headed ginger Muslim French Canadian here had to stooge for a goddamn brain-damaged moron. So I'm glad to see them doing well in their environment up there. My booking was cheesy. They'd have been all over. If somebody had suggested they do this before they were making the big money, oh, how dare you? But see, they won't. Nobody's like me. They won't put their money where their mouth is and just say, fuck you, keep your check. That's embarrassing. I'm not going to fucking do it. Fire extinguisher, garbage can, crutch, cookie sheet. Johnny Knoxville's dressed like a kid on Halloween playing superhero, but he got somebody slipped some fucking fentanyl in his candy or something. Zayn goes under the ring to pull a table out and pulls out a table covered with mouse traps. They've got a stop sign in the red. This would be unprofessional by AEW standards. Like if Jelly Nutella had a match with some fucking fat, bald, tattooed deathmatch garbage wrestler in some barn somewhere in the middle of Iowa, this is what you would get. And this is on WrestleMania. A bunch of amateurs and a goof going along with it.
It actually reminded me of Omega versus Moxley from Baltimore. They're very, very similar matches if you really think about it.
Well, they all look the same, but this was even more visually insulting because as bad as Moxley looks like a fucking plumber laying in an alley somewhere, at least he looks like he could fight you, whereas Johnny Knoxville is big as my little finger, gray-haired, by his own admission, brain damaged, and a complete imbecile that a bunch of mentally challenged people have supported to where he has enough money to where he can fucking go around and do shit like this. People think he's some kind of celebrity. By the way, Sami Zayn suplexed that 50-plus-year-old reality TV goof through a table and got a 2 count. And then Zayn was charging at him in the corner. Knoxville pulls up an air horn and blows it in Sami Zayn's face. It's a fucking spray can with compressed air. I've sprayed them. It won't hurt you if you do it to yourself. It's loud and annoying. So he blows the air horn and Sami Zayn is selling his ears like he's had his goddamn bell rung. And then I thought it was a mark. I thought it was a fan out of the crowd. Some guy comes in the ring and the announcers are calling him Party Boy. And he starts dancing and strips down to his thong underwear. In the middle of the ring, in the middle of the match. Who are these fucking people?
Well, he was one of the regulars on Jackass 20 years ago.
Well, is this like the Howard Stern crack-addicted dwarf and the fucking juggalo insane clown bullshit whoop whoop thing that...
In a sense, it's kind of like a... Jackass is like a self-contained whack pack, I guess you could say.
A whack pack.
Well, that's what Howard Stern called his people, the Whack Pack.
Oh, I thought that was when you all got together and, well, we won't go into that.
No, that's Whack Bag.
I thought that may be the Jack Pack. So... Whack Pack, Jack Pack,
All
whatever
right. All right,
when
Jack.
when this whole pack gets together, whatever they're doing, whacking, jacking, whacking it, whackity whack, smacking it, smack. I'm gonna go where the... All right. He's gonna jack it. So then Sami Zayn dispatched the party boy in the thong and rolled him under the ring, and then started to go under the ring after him for some reason, but a midget came out from under the ring and beat up and body slammed Sami Zayn in the middle. He I can't say he picked him up, he picked him down. Zayn actually bent over and went down in order to be picked up by the fucking midget who body slammed him. And then Johnny Knoxville gets a 2 count on a professional wrestler with a DDT. The midget does not leave.
His name is Wee Man.
Well, I don't care if he's got a fucking bladder issue. If his incontinence is a problem, this is not the time to talk about it, but he shouldn't have been on WrestleMania. They take forever to pull out something. It's a metal frame with a fake leg attached to it, and on the bottom of the fake leg, on the foot of the fake leg, is a shoe of some description or a boot or whatever. So they set that up. Zayn comes over and potatoed the fucking midget in the face full with a kick. I mean, they showed a replay. He just kicked that fucking midget in the face, and it's the only time I've ever really wanted to thank Sami Zayn for doing anything. So the midget got the potato. Then Zayn goes to the top rope to jump off on Johnny Knoxville, but Johnny Knoxville has a remote control in his hand, and while he's laying there, he reaches up in the air so everybody can see it, and he pushes a button, and pyro blows up off the ring post up Sami Zayn's sphincter. He burned him right in his taintal area, and he takes the bump off the ropes, and then they get a bowling ball and roll the bowling ball into Sami Zayn's nut. What is these ridiculous, mentally challenged, emotionally stunted goofballs' fascination with hitting each other or other people in the fucking nuts? And on purpose. And you've seen the clips in the past they go along with this shit. I have never once in my life, for a bet, for a dare, or for any other reason, allowed somebody to just full force haul off and either hit me, kick me, or drive something into my fucking testicles. Because you can get hurt that way, and it's stupid. I know that the things that they do here in public, they're obviously not using Mr. Johnson and his 2 friends for anything else, because what woman would cooperate with that? But why damage the goods when it's not necessary? So then after the bowling ball, they got the leg machine and had the leg machine kick him in the nuts while they're all holding it. And it's anybody over the age of 7 who watches or likes Jackass, Johnny Knoxville, or any of this fucking activity in a wrestling match is a complete fucking moron. Let me just make that blanket statement right now, and somebody try to prove me wrong. So this wouldn't end. Zayn took a slam off actually, he just flipped himself. He was on the top rope, and Johnny Knoxville reaches up, and Zayn just dives off, does a forward flip, and goes through the mousetrap table to the concrete floor. Could have killed himself. Anything that they were doing here could have ended in serious injury, and he's in there with a bunch of amateurs. And then all of the jackasses bring a giant mousetrap into I'm talking 6 feet long mousetrap that they've built specifically for this. Bring it in the ring, put Sami Zayn on it, And then Johnny Knoxville can't figure out how to set the fucking trap off on Zayn and reached over and got in the middle of it and exposed it. When he pushes the button, the wooden, instead of a real mousetrap, which the metal spring that clamps down on the poor little fella, it's just a big wooden thing, and it flies up and hits Johnny Knoxville in the back of the head and bounces off, and he pulls back, and then it slams down on Sami Zayn, and he's selling, and he's pinned in the fucking mousetrap. 1, 2, 3. I've said that they're risking injury, and unfortunately in this case, because everybody deserved it here, but unfortunately the only thing that was hurt in this match was the wrestling business. So night one, we left with optimism. By this point in the show, it's not even half over, and not only was I saying, oh, fuck, but I had to stop watching this thing. Because I didn't want to see any more. Even the stuff I wanted to see. After this, I didn't want to see any of it. I would have been happy right then if I never saw any wrestling ever again. And it's not like that anybody else really felt any different from what I saw on the internet, from what I saw on Twitter. All the wrestling fans were insulted. Everybody said, I can't wait to hear Cornette tear this apart. People are giving it negative stars or fucking laughing about it in the wrong way. Why? I can understand if it was goddamn The Rock as a movie star, or Mick Jagger, or some upper echelon. My God, we'll never get the opportunity to have a guy of this level of fame and magnitude on our show ever again. We'll do whatever to get him. Johnny fucking Knoxville? Johnny Knoxville's presence on this show cannot have added. I don't think it could have added anything. I don't think one single person bought it because of this. And maybe some people turned away from it because of this. But it couldn't be worth the bad publicity, the visual of all this silliness, ruining the rest of the show for people who don't want to see any more after that. Shitting on the business that the guys are about to get in the ring, the main events that drew the money, are going to get in the ring and risk their necks and their lives and their health to try to be professionals and really fucking dig in and give them and they do this. I'm sorry, this is the kind of thing that I think people that weren't even involved should quit over. Give me your thoughts.
Not a big fan of it. I was able to watch it and enjoy it for the stupidity that it was, because I knew what it would be. And it's Sami Zayn. It's not like they're working against Steve Austin or John Cena or Roman Reigns.
Oh, you would have thought that's who they were about 10 years ago before they got their attitudes adjusted and told how to do things the right way.
You're right that Johnny Knoxville is not a big star nowadays. Now, it did seem like they got a lot of people there who must have been Jackass fans, because when people pop a little bit for Wee Man, they are seriously deep Jackass fans.
Well, no, it's a visual. A midget, applicable of nothing, apropos of nothing. A midget comes out from under the ring and starts body slamming the wrestler. You're going to pop for that if you've never seen him before, because it's fucking preposterous.
Not my favorite thing on WrestleMania, and hopefully that's the end of Johnny Knoxville in WWE.
Well, next up,
Well, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I hate to bring this up. You have to think after a match like that, Sammy and Johnny probably have a lot of nicks and cuts when they get to the back and they check themselves out. Especially Sammy. A little bit of an issue. Pyro to the nuts.
Yeah.
That's a problem. Maybe there's some singed hair he needs to find a way to do away with.
Boy, I'll tell you what. I was about to say that's a hard way to control your genital hair, is by setting fire to it and burning it off. I know you do that with brush on occasion out in the prairie. You burn some brush off. I don't think you want to set your pubic hair on fire. I think there's an easier way to get rid of that unsightly hair. Because folks out there in podcast land, your skin, your hair, your armpits, your crotch, your taint, All those various intersections on your body deserve only the best. And that's what they've got right now in the new Ultra Premium collection from Manscaped. This new skincare and hair care product lineup is designed to upgrade the everyday man shower routine from head to toe and from balls to the wall. Folks, I'm telling you, the Ultra Premium Body Wash with aloe vera and sea salt will keep your skin feeling clean and moisturized all day. It's hair care time in the shower. You got the 2-in-1 shampoo and conditioner, cleans and nourishes all in one step. It's got a base of coconut water, green tea, aloe, turmeric, and sage. Just don't expose this to an open flame. Once you hop out of the shower, you can protect yourself from that stanky body odor with the Manscaped aluminum-free deodorant. That's right, this deodorant will not leave you smelling like a nasty old aluminum soup can, but fresh as a daisy. And it dries clear, and it's infused with the refined cologne. Then you've got the hydrating body moisturizer spray. This stuff will not only keep you moist, it'll keep you positively soaked. You'll have to wring yourself out several times every night before you go to bed because you will be containing so much moisture in your beautiful skin. And you get a free gift, the Manscaped Lip Balm. All of that in the new Ultra Premium collection from Manscaped.com. And you want to know why all of these products, folks, are so special? Besides the fact that they make any man, even if you've come out of a septic tank or you stink so bad that you could gag a maggot on a gut wagon or bluff a buzzard off a meat wagon, all these products are special because they use clean formulas and premium ingredients. It's cruelty-free, paraben-free, dye-free, and vegan. Cruelty-free. That means you use this stuff and you will be incapable of cruelty. Paraben-free. That means if you use this stuff, you won't have any goddamn parabens. Dye-free. That means you'll live forever. You will never die. And it's vegan. That means it tastes good. Folks, each one of these products also is infused with their refined cologne quality scent. So your partner, whoever he, she, or it may be, will love the signature spell. Folks, go right now to manscaped.com and use the code DRIVE, D-R-I-V-E. You can get 20% off and free shipping. 20% off and free shipping, manscaped.com. Use the code DRIVE. There are one of our longest-lasting sponsors, one of the folks' favorites. You love all of their items and implements and products, and now you'll smell and feel and look better than ever. Manscaped.com.
That's right.
And it's vegan.
And it's vegan. And, of course, we just saw a giant hand. There are a lot of interesting incidents with hands in WWE history, but hopefully you didn't
yeah, that's right. On that Johnny Knoxville thing. What was the giant hand at ringside?
It was a giant hand at ringside. I don't know how else to describe it. What was the giant hand at ringside? It's exactly what it was.
Well, there you go. Anyway, so I came back after a while, and I was able to make up some time because the previous match ran me away from the program, and I was running late. So the next match was for another women's tag team title. Sasha and Naomi versus Rhea Ripley and Liv Morgan versus Natty and Shayna Baszler against Carmella and Zelina. And I wrote C multi-man match rule, and I wouldn't watch Brock versus Reigns if it was on right now. I was thinking I might sell all of my wrestling videos after seeing that previous match.
One question I have for you, and maybe next time you see them, you'll be able to figure it out, but I was watching this, and I've had the thought a couple times recently. Is the gimmick that Liv Morgan and Rhea Ripley are fucking? Or just that they're friends? Because it went from like they're teaming up, now they're gonna hump each other on TV, I think, within a few weeks.
I saw the entrance and I saw that they were dressed provocatively. It's not that I've given up on Rhea Ripley. It's just that she's always in multiple girl matches or in some flunky position on Raw with all these other girls I don't give a shit about, and they're not doing anything with her. And I'm going to wait until
So I'm not frustrated and I'm not screaming, what the fuck's the matter with you people at the TV screen? Like when Ripley was wrestling Nikki Ass, her cosplaying teenage sidekick. I'm going to wait until they decide to do something with her, with Bianca or Becky or Charlotte or this or any of the other couple of top girls, and not bother if they're not going to be bothered with the person with the most potential on their female roster. Charlotte's already a star. Ronda Rousey's probably as over as she's going to get. It may be downhill from here. Bianca and Becky are over. Rhea Ripley for the future has more potential than any girl I've seen in the business. I think actually she ought to drop wrestling and go straight into movies because she looks like $25 million. But I'm not going to sit and watch her scuffle with 7 other interchangeable mid-level girls. Your thoughts?
I gave it 6 stars. I thought it was incredible, and we saw breathtaking moves, the likes of which we've never seen. I don't remember too much about the match, to be quite honest.
Yeah, okay. We're going to go to AJ Styles and Edge. And this is where I feel bad. Because I even wrote, I've got such a bad taste in my mouth now after the Johnny Knoxville thing. I was just looking at the clock. Here's AJ Styles and Edge. Even if Edge lost his mind and went from a family man babyface to a fucking horrible heel for no reason, and whatever the lead up has been to this, AJ's a great talent in the ring, so is Edge. And normally I would have thought this should be good and I would be looking forward to it. I was looking at the clock and I wrote how much longer on this fucking show because I was just so disgusted by what I'd seen before. So it wasn't fair to these guys. I'm not going to knock it because, to be honest, I got up to piss and forgot to hit pause. And then as I was coming back in, Hotchkiss called with an update on the action figure inventory. And finally, I came back in, and AJ was giving Edge a superplex off of the turnbuckle onto the ring apron, and that wasn't the finish. I'm like, oh, now they're trying to kill themselves. Damian Priest was out there at ringside. He looks different now. I guess he's a heel now. And he's associating with Edge. AJ goes for a springboard, but Damian Priest distracted him by standing there. So instead of AJ just going on about his business because he's in a fight, he stared at the guy that was standing there minding his own business at ringside, then went for the springboard. Edge hit a spear in midair, 1, 2, 3. I bet this was a really good fucking match. But as I said, after Johnny Knoxville, I just wanted this whole thing to be over and done with. How was it, Brian?
I didn't like it that much, and I know a lot of people did. I thought
you were going to say, oh my God, it was great. You missed it. It was fantastic.
No, you know what? I have not gotten into the Edge return, especially the last several months. I've kind of gotten sick of him. I don't like the new personality he just randomly developed in the last month. I wasn't into the promos, the theatrical ones he started doing. Whatever it is, I couldn't get into this match. I'm not going to blame it on the Knoxville match. I don't think it was that at all. And I love night 1. But there was nothing about Edge and AJ Styles that made me interested in it. I think it's their fault for a bad job of booking the weeks leading up to the match, but I didn't care about the match. And I've gotten sick of Edge.
Talent works hard, but they're not supported by the creative or the presentation. And anyway, they announced the attendance, 78,453. Of course, that's counting all the comps and the employees. Actually, ticket purchasing patrons, there was 1,347. Sheamus and Ridge Holland with their little dog Butch wrestled the New Day for 2 minutes. Because apparently they bumped that off night 1 and put it into night 2 and then gave them 2 minutes. Why? And for a lot of people, they go, well, at least they got to be on WrestleMania. Mark thinking, if I'm going to be on WrestleMania,
but I only have 2 minutes. There's no way to have a good fucking match. There's no way that it's anything but blah, get them in, get them out. I don't want to be seen like that on the biggest show in the entire year. I'll wait till they can give me some time to do something, or elsewise I'll just be over now. Is it now that just everybody wants to be in these battle royals or wants to be in these 60-second matches or whatever, just so they can say they were on the show?
Well, everyone does want to be on WrestleMania, and in regards to this match specifically, the New Day have for a long time been one of my least favorite acts in the history of wrestling. Because I'm not a child, and I don't have a moron sense of humor, I guess. I've never liked the New Day. Sheamus has kind of bored me for a long time. Ridge Holland hasn't shown me much. However, the 2 minutes they were out there were great. Because of Butch. This has become the most ridiculous character, and the fact that Vince must like it, that they keep doing it. Pete Dunne is smaller than everyone in the match. And the entire match, someone has to hold him. It's like Roughhouse Fargo. The entire match, someone has to hold him or keep track of him or keep him away from people. I am getting a kick out of that, I have to say.
But again, you say, I'm sorry, as a professional, if you just know, okay, I'm never going anywhere and I'm never going to do anything, I'm not going to be a big deal, but I get to be on WrestleMania, I'll just be in a 60-second match or thrown out in a battle royal or whatever. Okay, I get that. But if you ever have been anyone or have the confidence that you can ever be anyone, then you don't want to just be thrown into a battle royal. You don't just want to be thrown into a 60-second match, exactly because it's the biggest show of the year, that more people are going to see this than anything else. I don't want to be seen looking like a fucking goof. So that's the way I remember in some cases when we started, Crockett started doing the pay-per-views and or the live Clash of Champions, there were timing issues, yes, but there was never a situation where any kind of top guys or top match was told to go out, be done in 60 seconds. That was for TV, the syndicated TV, where we'd make our entrance, look at the job guys, and Tommy Young would say, go home, while we were taking our jackets off. That was TV. That's one thing. But anyway, so 2 minutes. I'd left this. I came back. I zipped through this stuff. And now finally we get to something else that we can pay some attention to. Vince McMahon makes his entrance. And he had a little bit more of the Vince walk going there than he did the other night at the Hall of Fame. He gives Austin Theory the big intro, and down he comes, and then here come the Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders again. Okay, I guess this works because Pat McAfee played pro football. So
Not for Dallas,
but it's football cheerleaders. The other night one, they were just out there just dancing for no reason. But anyway, so the match is going to be McAfee against Theory. Vince is at ringside. And again, just like Logan Paul, Pat McAfee took this seriously. He's trained, as we've talked about. He trained with Rip Rogers, and he's worked out with a lot of these guys. And he takes the business seriously. And he was excellent. And Theory, they talked about it, and as we find out at the finish when they did what they did, there was discussion, obviously, of Vince having a match with McAfee. We see now that whatever reservations and whoever voiced them were correct, that they should not do that, but they should do something else to get to that. But this is an example where Theory, even though he gets beat, he's Vince McMahon's flunky / protege. He's in a high-profile match with a mainstream sports guy at WrestleMania, and we know he can work. He's fucking brilliant, Theory. So this was better than it had any right to be, because McAfee's had 3 matches in front of people now, right? And they brought it and they worked it out and they knocked it out of the park, I thought. Back and forth, but McAfee did a great job. When he goes for a superplex, Theory shoves him off the top rope He backflips to the middle, lands on his feet, runs, leaps up to the top rope in one leap and does the superplex. That was smoother than anybody in the wrestling business would have done something like that.
If you remember, when he had that match with Adam Cole a couple of years ago,
yeah,
and it was an empty arena match, and we talked about not only how good he was, but there was something he did that was very similar, where he ran and he jumped on the top rope, and it was so impressive. And I remember at the time we said, imagine if he actually did that in a room with people in it. They would go crazy. It would look amazing.
Well, there you go.
And he finally did it.
And again, that got a 2 count and a big pop, and then Theory took over. He tried to go for his finish, and McAfee got out of it and rolled him up 1, 2, 3 and got a huge pop because Theory already has heat because he is doing the bidding of the evil Mr. McMahon. And that's where they were going with that thing the whole time, and it worked. And then, okay, we thought, well, this is over with, and then Vince does the thing where he starts to take his jacket off. And then he thinks better of it, and he starts to walk away, and then he turns back around, and then he takes the jacket off and the tie. And then he unbuttons his cuffs, and he unbuttons his collar, and he takes off his shirt. And I'm thinking, fuck, if he goes any further, I know this is pay-per-view, but they should have charged more money. But finally, he gets in the ring, and I know that everybody was thrilled to see because it's Vince and it's the WrestleMania crowd and heel, babyface, good, bad, whatever. They want to see the stars. They want to see the people they never get to see in person. Vince hadn't been involved in something like this in a long time. So they were looking with the rose-colored glasses, the fans in the building, anybody watching television or whatever. But was it sad to see this, or was it fun because it's Vince McMahon, or was it sad because it's Vince McMahon and it's not the same Vince?
The stuff with him and Austin was fun to see. The stuff from the moment he took his shirt off and got in the ring was sad to see, up until Austin came out. And he's in better shape than most 76-year-olds ever, but he's...
Well, yes.
But as soon as he took his shirt off, that was also the first time we've seen Vince's old man arms.
Yeah.
He was an old man. I mean, you could tell he was an old man, and that clothesline. I mean, as soon as he started doing stuff, he's like, oh, no. Like I said, they needed to do something with him in Austin. It was the right thing to do. They probably should have ended the night with it.
Well, yeah, but
I also, beyond the way Vince looked and how sad that was, I also wouldn't have had him go in there and beat McAfee after McAfee just won a match.
Well, that's the thing. The stuff with Austin, except for the unfortunate stunner, the stuff with Austin was all beer drinking and gaga and pantomime and whatever. If he was going to have a match here, why couldn't he have had a manager match for a minute and a half? Because the thing I didn't understand from the start was Vince and McAfee are facing off and trash talking or whatever, and Theory comes from behind and blisters Pat McAfee and knocks him goofy from behind, and that's when Vince says ring the bell to the referee and should have taken over and got on him, but instead he stood there and let McAfee get back up. Well, then what was the point of having the heel hit him from behind to get you an advantage? Now you're face to face again. McAfee runs at Vince, and by God, it was like he had no rotator cuffs. Vince just threw an arm out, and McAfee ran into it and took a bump. That was a clothesline. And then Vince runs McAfee's head into the turnbuckle, and it didn't look like the words that I just described. And then another stationary clothesline where McAfee's running into him and he's just holding his arm up. I know he's 76, but that is one of the reasons why that maybe this shouldn't have happened this way. Another head to the turnbuckle. Snail's pace, and Vince keeps letting McAfee get up and recover and look at him and get up, and then he'll do something else to him, and McAfee's got to sell. What's he going to do? Now, Vince, time for me to come back? And Theory tripped him and McAfee and crotched his nuts on the ring post, and so Vince could strut around. And then he was giving him, it looked like our little dog Pockets. We give him the soft little kicks in the midsection. And he wasn't trying to like he was kicking the shit out of him. He was doing the insulting kicks, but maybe he's doing the insulting kicks because that's one thing about Austin. He's been wearing 2 knee braces for bad ACLs for 25 years. When you kick with your right foot, your left foot, that's why I don't kick anymore like I used to. Your left foot is landing with a lot of force and you can fuck your knee up. Well, Vince had 2 torn quads, so he wasn't stomping at all. It's not the same as just lifting weights when you're in the ring with the mat moving and balance being and impact from different places. Go ahead, what?
I was going to say, he tore his quads a long time ago.
Well, yeah, but that's what I'm saying. He was fucking mid-50s and tore his quads rolling in the ring. Now he's 76 and he's going to start throwing fucking kicks and look like Flair or somebody. No, this was low-impact shit because his tendons, sinews, muscles, connecting tissue, whatever, is all almost 80 years old. At least what hadn't been replaced previously. But anyway, so after the crotch on the post, Theory gives Vince a football, and Vince teases kicking it into the crowd. And I know he's having fun and teasing and milking, but I could tell just by the body language, and he might never admit this, but McAfee was down there going, why am I having to sell so fucking long? Will you please come over here? And finally, Vince teases kicking the football into the crowd and instead just kicks it into McAfee's midsection and covers him 1, 2, 3. And then kicked him out to the floor like a piece of garbage.
We'll talk about what happened after that in a second, and we've given our thoughts about whether Vince should or shouldn't be in there. But if you are going to do this, and word got out, and then people thought it wasn't going to happen because they set up the Austin Theory match, although it always seemed like there was some kind of hidden agenda behind the whole thing, although that was never spelled out. In storyline, it doesn't make any sense why Vince all of a sudden wanted to wrestle a match with McAfee. But if you were going to do this, it absolutely would have meant a lot more to WrestleMania to get people to check it out casually if you announced that 76-year-old Vince McMahon was going to wrestle.
A pro football player.
A pro football player who's pretty popular outside of wrestling, too.
But, I was thinking ahead of time that maybe it was Vince that said, we can't advertise this as a match because I can't do enough to give the people their money's worth, make it right or whatever. So let's put Theory in and then we'll do something. But then once he got in there, the match bell to bell, even though a lot didn't happen, it was slow. It lasted minutes. And it, like I said, a manager match. The fucking heel nails McAfee and down he goes. Vince gets on him, on top of him, on the mount, punches him several times, puts the boots to him a little bit, chokes him over the rope, rakes his eyes. McAfee tries to bow up a little bit, and that's when Theory pulls a leg from behind, and Vince gets on him again and maybe grabs something, wraps it around his neck, starts choking him. Or just staying on him like a guy who can't fight would stay on a guy who can fight if the guy who can fight was down. And then finally, either Vince misses something he's trying to do or McAfee just bows up. And boom, 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 McAfee makes a little bit of a comeback on a couple of things that Vince might be able to do. I'm not talking about bumps or whatever. But then let Theory pop up, and there McAfee, because McAfee just had that match with Theory. I mean, it's not like that they've made up and everything. So, and McAfee won, so Theory's still mad. Theory could pop up, and McAfee could give him a couple of bumps and turn around into something that Vince has in his hand, or maybe Theory can hit McAfee with something from behind, and Vince falls on him. How did I beat any major pro wrestler that I ever beat? It was all from the heel doing the damage and me falling on the unconscious body and then crowing about it like I did something. But he beat him and kicked him out on the floor. And then Vince and Austin Theory celebrated what seemed like forever until the glass broke. And then again, I mean, obviously, the people go crazy. Here comes Steve Austin. He's in the ring. He's face-to-face with Vince McMahon. He beats up Austin Theory. He gives Austin Theory a stunner. Austin Theory took 4 bumps on the same stunner.
It was like he was swimming in midair.
Yes, it was great. He went straight up, straight back, bumped up forwards and flipped. And anyway, he wanted to make sure that he made the most of that one. That's the first and last stunner that Austin Theory will ever take. It's like being figure forward by Flair or pile driven by Lawler or, spinning toe hold by Funk or whatever. It's an honor. So then Vince weasels out. They do the facials and the interplay with him and Austin. Hey, let's have a beer. And as soon as they go to have the beer, and folks, if you haven't seen the clip, it's all over Twitter. Mick Foley even shot his live reaction to it and put it on Twitter. Austin kicks Vince in the stomach to set up the stunner. When he kicked Vince in the stomach, Vince either not thinking or potentially off balance, went down to one knee on his right knee instead of just bending over. So since the stunner is kick and grab in kind of the same motion, Austin kicks Vince and goes to grab where he thinks his head is going to be, but Vince has gone down to a knee and Austin reaches over the top of him. There's no head there. Well, now Vince realizes what's happened, and he tries to get back up to his feet. Well, now Austin is grabbing for him, but when Vince pushes himself up to his feet, he gets overbalanced and he staggers backwards into the ropes. Austin goes and Austin is trying to get Vince's head in his hands, and Vince is trying to feed back to Austin, but they're not syncing up in the middle. That's why I said earlier in the show, it looked like Muhammad Ali at the peak of his fucking powers, dodging punches of his opponents, except it was Vince accidentally not letting Austin grab him around the fucking head. And finally, Austin grabs him and they're in the corner, and Austin's already starting to laugh. And by that point, he just sits down with the stunner, and Vince, instead of going to his knees, went to his ass, and they all collapsed in a heap. It looked like a monkey fucking a football. And Austin spit all of his beer out because he's like, this is the most preposterous, and gets up laughing his ass off because he's like, he just fell on his ass in Texas Stadium in front of 70-something thousand people because Vince couldn't stand up straight.
He hit the stunner, and give him credit. From the moment he first tried to hit it, he had beer in his mouth. He was waiting. So the whole time Vince is doing the rope-a-dope, he's holding the beer in his mouth. And when he finally hits it, like I said, the greatest visual ever. Vince, you can't even see where his legs are. Yeah. He just looks like a torso in pain. And right in front of him is Austin spitting the beer out. It's the funniest fucking picture of all time.
It looked like Austin gave a stunner to the legless man in the AEW Battle Royal. And then, so Austin gets up and he's laughing. He starts calling for the beers, and Vince rolled out somewhere. And then Austin called McAfee in to have a beer with him and drink, and then I guess he figured that can't be the last one I ever do. So he calls McAfee in and drinks beer with him, and then gives him a hell of a stunner. And McAfee, he took a completely different style of bump where he got knocked backwards up on tiptoes, froze, and then collapsed. But at least the last stunner that we will see was a good one, but the next to last one is the one that a lot of people, especially the boys in the business, are going to remember. It was worse than Linda's, wasn't it?
It was, and remember what I said to you before, everything was kind of cool, came full circle, including the fact that Vince's first stunner and his last stunner were the two worst stunners of all time.
That's right. He couldn't get the first one either, could he?
He sold it really weird. This one, again, we've seen the stunner now for 25, 30 years, and I've never seen anyone go down more that way.
All right, come on
just
now.
Just looking at the picture of Vince with Austin in front of him on Splash Mountain.
Yeah.
Well, listen, hey, let's be a little serious for a second. Maybe you bought WrestleMania the old-fashioned way on pay-per-view, and you feel a little ripped off by night 2, especially the old man who can't take the stunner, and you want to sue.
Maybe, just maybe you might even be more upset because you've actually bought stock in this publicly traded company and you've just had your first look at the guy in charge, the person running this thing, and you say, no, I got to get my money back. I got to sue. One way or another, folks, you need a lawyer.
Call Stephen P. News. If you need to sue. An outlaw mud show or two. Still sue the rest.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, if you have been taken on some of this WWE stock and now you see that's the chairman, that's the guy in charge, we need our money back. Or whether you're just pissed off that you paid for this thing and you want to get your money back for that, or whether you've been damaged, harmed, or infringed upon in any other way, in or out of the wrestling industry, the man to call, Stephen P. New at newlawoffice.com, 888-692-8084. For years now, he's been the consigliere of the cult of Cornette. He's helped countless members of our listening audience out there with a variety of problems. If he can't help you, well, I won't say nobody can, but he might be able to find one. If he can't help you, he'll put you in touch with somebody. If he can't do that, you're probably hopeless. But I don't know, Brian. I'm wondering now, wait a minute. Think about this. Let's flip this around a little bit. Should Vince McMahon retain Stephen P. News services and sue that no good, dirty, low-down Stone Cold Steve Austin for physically assaulting an elderly man? A man ready to be put away in a home somewhere and he was physically assaulted? There's a lot of different ways that these suits could go.
If he's going to get Stephen P. New, I'm going to get Jerry McDivitt. I just want to declare that right now.
Boy, you know what? Next year for WrestleMania,
night 2,
at night 2, hell with Johnny Knoxville. I don't even think we need Logan Paul. I think we need Jerry McDivitt versus Stephen P. New in a writ on a pole match.
Not a pole match.
Yes.
No.
They put it on the pole, and the first one to climb the pole. And see, I know.
Ladder match.
No, well, okay, ladder match. Writ on the top of the brass hemorrhoid pillow. And I'll tell you what, I've been reading writs all morning. If you've read the writs that Stephen P. New has written, you'll know they're really well-written writs. But he can take care of you regardless of whether you need to be written or written off, folks. Again, Stephen P. New, newlawoffice.com, 888-692-8084. He can defend you from anything except bad memories of a stinky WrestleMania match.
That's right. And Jim, I did say before that I thought the Vince McMahon, Steve Austin thing should have been the close of night 2. That should have been the ending of WrestleMania. Even though traditionally the world title match should be. Of course, it wasn't the ending. There was more of WrestleMania.
Well, you know, and they were in kind of a sticky situation here because I agree, Vince McMahon and Steve Austin in the ring together for the first time in almost 20 years should have closed the show, but they couldn't put the match on that got us to that point after the Roman Reigns Brock Lesnar match. So I see what their dilemma was. But this is the one that drew the money. This is the one we've been waiting to see. And remember, Brian, just the last week or two, I said a lot of times in fans' minds, when they hear a matchup, they think they want to see it more than they actually do when they see it.
Yeah.
Well, I was victim of the same thing because I've been thinking, okay, I want to see Reigns and Brock. And now that I saw both nights, I wanted to see Cody and Seth. I didn't know I wanted to see Becky and Bianca, but I enjoyed it. I wanted to see what was going to go on with Vince and Austin and Theory and whatever. But this is the match they sold it on. I think I've kind of seen this match. Is that the way it came off to you? It wasn't. These guys don't need to go a long time. They don't need to have a 30-minute match and an intricate scientific extravaganza. That's neither one of these guys' style. And this was a Paul Heyman spectacular. The big guys with the big moves that are over, pulling them out in unexpected ways. But I feel like at this point that we've kind of seen this match. Did you feel the same way? Even though we haven't, I mean, they've wrestled, 2 or 3 years ago?
They wrestled at WrestleMania. Wasn't that the match where the report, could be wrong, wasn't it Roman versus Brock where Roman didn't win the belt and Sika and a few other people in the crowd? The report was they got really upset and were going to tear things up.
Yes, and what was that, New Orleans?
I thought that was the Bay Area.
Might have been San Francisco.
But
I always want everything to happen in New Orleans.
I know, I don't understand this, but we've seen this kind of match, and actually I thought, for me, and again, I was a little tired. Night 1 was good. Night 2, not as good, and we just saw an incredible moment. Wasn't really ready for this match, and this was all that was left. And it brought back bad memories of, for a while, Brock was doing... I thought Brock was relying too much on the Suplex City shit of just throwing the guy overhead and then doing it again over and over. And the guy I always think about in my head, him doing that to the most, is Roman, and here he was doing it again.
Well, at the start of the match, by the way, did you notice, is Paul now coloring what's left of his hair?
I believe he did, yeah.
Because it seemed like normally when I see him, his hair kind of fades gradually into his bald spot, which is the majority of his head. But here there was a clear line of demarcation between jet black hair and white bald skin. This is title versus title. And that's another reason why a unification match is always a big deal. They back in the 70s when they did some with the NWA and WWF titles with Dusty and Superstar Graham and Harley and Superstar. That was a big deal to the fans who were not even smart back then that there was no way either one of those belts was going to change hands. But it was a unification. The two champions, we're going to settle this. That's always a big deal. I thought it hurt it that they're fighting for two identical championship belts. They're just different colors. Just the big jeweled W. The belts are all they all look the same, just different colors for their different brands. So that kind of hurt. But this was a fight. It was big guys, and it was the kind of match they need to have. Again, it's not like either one of these guys need to be doing flying head scissors. And and they had the big high impact moments. Paulie's begging off from Brock on the floor. It was all Roman Reigns' idea. I didn't have anything to do with it. I love you. And then Reigns comes and spears Brock through the barricade. And Brock barely beats the count, and he gets hit with a spear by Reigns, and 2 count. And Reigns comes with the Superman punches, but Brock gets up and starts the Germans, 3 Germans, 4 Germans. More Germans than they had on Hogan's Heroes. And they just went back and forth with big moves. Brock got the F5 in finally for a 2 count. Went for another F5. Roman goes for now everybody is going for the eyes. Have you noticed this? How many times have you seen this over this week? When somebody gets picked up for a finish, they reach down and gouge the eyes. Well, imagine that. Who could have ever thought of that? That'd be the first thing I'd think of. Motherfucker, I'll blind your ass. He speared Brock into the referee and then hit Brock with a nut shot and then hit Brock with the title belt and got a 2 count when the referee came back around. And then he hit the ropes. This is the one. Remember the other spear in the back on Lashley and Almost. Reigns hits the ropes. Lesnar is in the middle of the ring staggering. Reigns hits the ropes one side, goes to the other side, hits those, comes off like Brock is going to turn around and he's going to spear him. I think Brock thought that he was coming off one more side of the ropes. And I think that Roman was going for the spear and realized about the point of no return that he's going to spear Brock in the back, but he speared him in the back. And then on the second spear, as soon as he got speared, Brock grabbed a double wrist lock, the Kimura, the young folks call it. Luthez's favorite hold. And Reigns made the ropes. The thing about, as we've talked about, it is the big high impact, match that they lay out with guys like this, and they just hit things one after another. But in this, Brock is proving he not only can sell much better than anybody gives him credit for. I'm not just talking selling by going down, taking a bump. I'm talking facially and showing the pain, and you can hear the pain. But his work, so after all this time, has he wrestled more than 10 times in any calendar year since the late 2000s?
If he has, it would be just slightly over that amount.
So his work is still surprisingly good for a guy that doesn't do this very often.
Whatever you want to say about Brock, it seems like he's always taken his stuff, especially since he made a comeback, takes his stuff seriously. He never goes in there and dogs it. His stuff is serious.
No, and even when, and he's said that he didn't like the business back in, remember when he quit the first time, he didn't want to be like one of those old guys, broke down and he's drinking vodka and blah, 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 and limping to his plane to go home at night, just like all of us did back in the old days, limp to our plane and then fly home. But he never got in the ring and did silly bullshit or did anything to make it look to the people like he didn't give a shit about the business or care about it or make it look phony or whatever. We've never said that about him, just that he was not enamored of the business as a lifestyle to begin with. But he's always, and it just makes sense. If he's the top guy in a hard sport, then that makes him look better than if he's the top guy in a bunch of bullshit. So that's another reason why the main event stars not only always try to take care of the ones who deserve to be main event stars, not the ones that are put there by amateur bookers, always try to make the business look serious and dangerous and etc., because it makes them look better. They're on top of it. If you reign supreme in a bunch of fucking phony bullshit, then you're just the top phony bullshitter. However, having said that, at that point, Paul is begging for Roman Reigns to get up, my tribal chief. Get up. What a fucking toady he is. I love him. And Lesnar goes for another F5, and Reigns drops behind and hits him with a spear. 1, 2, 3. This shit comes out of nowhere more often than not anymore.
Well, I will say, apparently Roman Reigns was legitimately hurt, so they went to the finish early, is what I'm hearing.
Oh, okay. When did this come in? I have not been made aware of this.
Remember when he said my shoulder's out? Apparently his shoulder was out.
Oh, shit. Well, then he was telling the truth, wasn't he? So, what took his shoulder out? Which move, then, do we suspect? Because it was right before that. Was it the double wrist lock?
It may have been the Kimura, yeah.
Did he fucking double wrist lock Roman Reigns and pop his shoulder out of the socket? Brock must have had a flashback to the NCAA tournament. It don't take much, and that's why the double wrist lock is the go-to move for every shooter and hooker since the dawn of wrestling, because it doesn't take much at all. I could probably, if he would allow me to apply it to him, I'm not saying I'd get it on my own, but if he say, hey, put this hold on me, I could probably, if I strained hard, pop Roman Reigns' shoulder out with a double wrist lock, because it don't take much. So, well, maybe that's why it was a little sudden. But I thought that after all the stuff that had gone on, Brock goes for the F5, Reigns drops behind, hits the rope, spears him 1, 2, 3, but it was the only winner possible. Brock is part-time. Reigns, they've had so much invested in. He's the face of the company. So the result was the right thing to do. maybe, but then maybe we shouldn't be too hard on the match if they had more to go. Now I got to go back and watch.
Yeah,
and see.
me too.
I thought that he was just talking to Paul and working, but if he's yeah, now my shoulder's out. I'll be done for the evening over here. Thank you. Nice of you to come. Please tip the waitress on the way out.
I thought the same thing, and then when he was trying to lift the belt with both hands and he was struggling, I said, oh, wow, he's doing a great job of selling here.
You know what? I didn't even pay any attention to that part.
He tried to lift, one belt in each arm, and he couldn't get the one arm up, and he struggled with it, and eventually he got it, which made me think, oh, okay, he's doing a good job of selling. And then this morning I've seen reports, and we got to look further into it to make sure that he may have legitimately been hurt.
Well, if he was struggling to lift that belt up when he just won the main event at WrestleMania over Brock Lesnar, I think even if he's a pro, he probably wasn't selling on purpose at that point. And he may have done more damage doing that. Because if the last thing you want to do with a separated shoulder or a bad AC joint or whatever is lift your arm straight up in the air. That's the last thing you want to be trying to do. Well, there you go. Hey, we don't need no stinking operations. We'll just pop it back in ourselves.
Well, that was WrestleMania.
It certainly was. And, I think if they'd have eliminated, and obviously if they'd gone to one night, they would have lost millions of dollars in the gross and et cetera, but just judging purely on the quality of the show, there was a good 4 hours, a really good 4 hour show in the middle of that 8 hours. And if they'd just gone with more of the good stuff and less of the bad stuff, that could have been one of the better shows that they've done in years and years and years. But spread out over 2 days with the time, and then throwing in Johnny Knoxville and Almost and a couple other things, it got brutal there for a while.
Well, we will see what happens tonight. Monday Night Raw should be a memorable night. Roman Reigns will be giving some sort of speech about his big win. Cody Rhodes, his first promo in a long time. You going to watch, obviously?
Well, I'm not saying I'll watch live, but I'll be talking about it by the time that we see you again. So this is the Drive-Thru. This is your program. It's coming out as quickly as you can turn that thing around and get Kippelman and Sharknado and the rest of those guys in gear. And then this weekend will be the experience, hopefully on Saturday afternoon, where we'll talk about Raw and NXT and what's AEW going to say on Wednesday. Are the Hardy Boys going to throw a little fit? Are they going to read their Twitter profile in response to whoever they're mad at now, like Cody?
Well, we'll find out. It's FTR Young Bucks on Wednesday.
Oh, God, I forgot about that. Well, either we will know at the end of that program whether the Hardy Boys are willing to do what's right for business or whether the Hardy Boys just want to do what the Hardy Boys want to do. The result of that match will indicate whether they're professionals or whether they're fucking jackoffs. I think I know what I'm looking for. I'm looking for the Hardy Boys to win and win all the belts so they can take pictures with them and change their Twitter profile again to knock Cody. And FTR will be further buried so they can go off and defend all their other belts against all the other teams that the Jackson Boys can't hold the jocks of after the Jackson Boys have used their power to prove a point. Now, let's see if they prove me wrong. What do you think?
No, they've been proving you right for a while now.
It has been a pretty steady right-proving thing.
We'll see. We'll see if the go-home heat continues. But, of course, this is the end of my show. Now, this has been a long show.
Wait a minute. Hold on 1 second. We've got an update.
Oh.
We've got a WrestleMania update.
Oh.
Apparently, producer Pat Buck immediately resigned from WWE on Monday morning after WrestleMania. He was the producer of Charlotte versus Ronda and co-produced Roman Reigns and Brock Lesnar.
Huh.
The word making the rounds, according to PW Insider, is that Buck stated with the matches he worked on for WrestleMania 38, he had achieved his goals of producing main events on the biggest show of the year and now needed to refocus his energies on his family, something the current WWE schedule could not consistently afford him the ability to do. So now the producers are quitting.
That's interesting. We'll see what comes out of that. If there ever was a good reason, that is a good reason. Hey, I'm a producer. I'm never going to produce anything bigger than the main events of WrestleMania. I'm going home now.
Oh, and here is another piece of news on the picture of the Kimura, the double wrist lock that Brock had on Reigns. It's a great picture. Brock is making a horrible face, and Reigns shouted, "It's out!" And apparently images posted on Twitter show that Reigns may have suffered a legitimate injury. And, oh, golly gee, there are pictures, still frames, and it shows that's not a, hold on, I'm trying to see a better picture. That's not a separated shoulder.
Is it a muscle issue?
That is that may look like a torn bicep to me. There's a giant swelling on the outside of his bicep on his arm. That's not a separated shoulder. A separated shoulder, you'll get a knot right up on top of your shoulder, right at where the collarbone comes up. And that, remember, we've talked about it. You can tell if a guy's had a separated shoulder, knot never goes away.
It happened to Karrion Kross in NXT when we were watching that match.
And I said, look at that knot. Yeah. This looks like a muscle tear to me. It's a bulge on the bicep with already discoloration starting to happen. That,
well, let's hear it. Let's say it now. Your next WWE champion, Cody Rhodes.
Well, I'm telling you, if they can't get Brock to come back, but apparently, yeah, he got the ropes, broke the hold. There was a referee bump, and then they did the finish, blah, blah, blah. But that was, whoo. So we will see if that is a muscle tear, he ain't going to be wrestling for a while. Maybe they might need to see if Brock has anything planned for the next few months.
They have a lot of interesting ways they can go. If he's going to be out of action for an extended period of time, and they can either create an interim champion or just give someone else the belt. You have Brock, you have babyface Bobby Lashley, you have Cody's now in the mix. It will be interesting. If they do lose Roman for any period of time, what do they do?
What do they do? Sounds like one of those old commercials.
Well, we will certainly find out in the future on one of these shows, but until then, no songs this week. We're tired. It's been a long few days, ladies and gentlemen. But we will be back this weekend on the Jim Cornette Experience, wherever you find your favorite podcast. And of course, next week, right back here in the Drive-Thru. Let me make this official. All right. That was a good one, too. You can follow Jim on Twitter at @TheJimCornette. You can follow me on Twitter at @GreatBrianLast. You can hear me on the 605 Superpodcast at 605pod.com, or available wherever you find your favorite podcasts. Of course, the official Jim Cornette YouTube channel. Just go to YouTube and search for Jim Cornette. It'll come right up. Subscribe today. Full episodes, clips of episodes, omnibus collections, all with the very popular and exclusive Travis Heckel artwork, the official Jim Cornette YouTube channel. Get access to the archives of the Drive-Thru and the Experience, including past WrestleMania reviews, by becoming a patron. Patreon.com/Cornette. For $5 a month, you get access to the archive going back to the very beginning in 2013. And for those asking, another batch of shows is prepared and will be probably later this week being uploaded. Patreon.com/Cornette. Of course, don't ever forget about Cornette's collectibles at JimCornette.com, unless you wanted a bloody action figure variant, then you should forget about it.
Well, no, you still shouldn't forget. Just be quicker next time. But the commentator playset is still available in the 5 or 6 hours that we've been recording this program today. I've gotten a note from Hotchkiss that we're down about another 75 figures, but there's still somewhere between 500 and something, 600 and something commentator playsets remaining at JimCornette.com. Do not let the sun set on your aspirations of having these figures. You may be left out.
At JimCornette.com. Of course, the Drive-Thru is brought to you by the Law Office of Stephen P. New, 888-692-8084. Get even with Stephen at newlawoffice.com. But until this weekend on The Experience, and next week right back here on the Drive-Thru, for Vince McMahon, I was going to say for Vince McMahon, I still said it. For Vince McMahon, I'm Jesse Ventura. We'll see you next week. Tally-ho!
Good night, McMahon.